The first time. Out of the gun, back a handoff to Branson Robinson. He fights to a tackle and scores!
I think his knee was
like
down.
They had him stacked down. Now they're going to mark him at the half-yard line. Trout thought he scored, and it looked from here like he did. But they're going to mark him down just short. But they had him stacked up around the 10, and he just kept fighting. Now quickly to the line they come. Robinson again takes an inside handoff. No signal yet.
Oh, yeah,
and now a touchdown. So Branson Robinson has the second career touchdown, freshman from Canton, Mississippi. A 1-yard run. And they've all been involved here tonight. What a play on the previous play. They had him around the legs near the 10-yard line. And it was Hodges Tomlinson in particular who didn't get him down. But they gave him another chance, and Robinson scores. 58-7. Here's Jack Podlesny. And his kick is good. He's coming to the end of an outstanding career at the University of Georgia. Heading for the Senior Bowl.
I have a question for you, Sean. You probably know the answer since you are on top of all these things. In the BCS CFP era, what's the most points scored by a national championship winning team?
We'll look it up during the break.
Okay.
It's good tease. Holding a lot of people, I'm sure. 9:24 left in the fourth quarter. It's Georgia 59, TCU 7. You're listening to College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app presented by Wendy's.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max.
Odds to win conference. I think they
win the conference.
You mean to get to the Super Bowl?
When you win the conference, you win the Super Bowl.
Yes,
you go to the
means
Super
what?
Bowl, Max.
Yes, it means to win the conference. What we're asking is, what does that mean? To get to the Super Bowl? Or
Yes, you win the conference means you go to the Super Bowl.
Nuno, does it mean to...
If you win the conference, what happens, Max?
Okay.
Key, J, and Max. Mornings on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Dominique Foxworth Show.
Send tweets to Dominique Foxworth about this, but if the Vikings do win the Super Bowl, I will do something very embarrassing on camera of the listeners/viewers choosing because they suck.
It doesn't matter. It's not going to degrade the value of their Super Bowl should they win it. But if they do win it, they're going to have to hold the Lombardi for me to be like, yeah, they're a good football team.
Check out the Dominique Foxworth Show anywhere you get your podcast. You can't miss a moment with Greeny.
59 years ago tomorrow, Nicholas Kim Coppola was born. You may know him as Nicolas Cage. Favorite Nick Cage movie?
Face Off is the one I was thinking of, the one with John Travolta. I couldn't remember the name of it.
Face Off is unbelievable.
I like that movie. Hembo, have you ever seen any movie with Nicolas Cage in it? If I showed you a picture of Nicolas Cage, would you know it was him?
He's on the screen right now.
Take Hembo's Face Off.
Greeny, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Plus, you can watch and listen on the ESPN app. You're listening to the College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Tonight's attendance here at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, 70,240. That's the sellout in this stadium. It's barely 2 years old, and it is hard to describe. You have to come see it for yourself. The attendance is brought to you by Vivid Seats, where you earn rewards with every purchase. Vivid Seats Rewards is your ticket to more events. Vivid Seats. Life happens live.
Sean, I did a little research during the break, and at least in the college football playoff era now, Georgia has tied the highest point total. In 2014, the first year of the CFP, Oregon scored 59 points against Florida State. Alabama has scored 52. But 59 is the highest in the college football playoff era.
And a kickoff by Podlesny is a touchback. And TCU will start at its own 25-yard line. Stetson Bennett with the finishing touches on a career that began as a walk-on in 2017. He'll leave the winner of 2 national titles as the first starting quarterback to win consecutive national titles since A.J. McCarron of Alabama in 2011 and 2012. That's the last time any team won back-to-back national titles. Bennett 29-3 in his career as a starting quarterback. That's a 90.6 winning percentage. A Heisman finalist this year, and tonight became the first Georgia player ever to pass for 4,000 yards in a season.
Kirby doing the same thing for some defensive players right now.
There's a timeout on the field with 9:24 to go in the fourth quarter. Georgia 59 and TCU 7 in the College Football Playoff National Championship, presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, presented by Wendy's.
The biggest names in sports are on ESPN Radio.
We are talking to Christian Kirk, wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Offense, defense, special teams, just coming together, and that's what's helped us, especially in some of these close games against, better opponents.
Pleased to be joined by Tony Baselli, Pro Football Hall of Famer.
For me, if I was voting, which I'm not, I would not let one game impact my voting for Jalen Hurts. I think right now, he is the MVP.
Talking to 5-time All-Star and 18-year NHL vet Chris Pronger.
There's other guys, they need to feel 100% both mentally and physically before they're willing to play. Some organizations don't like players playing hurt. Others are okay with it.
Bill's All-Pro safety Jordan Poyer is with us.
That's one thing I learned about playing Tom Brady throughout the years. Tom's really out there playing chess. Everybody else is out there playing checkers.
The biggest names in sports come here. And it all starts weekday mornings with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. And continues all day. This is ESPN Radio.
Let's go, baby. We are ready for NFL playoffs this weekend.
Super Wild Card Weekend.
The story is irresistible of Tom Brady beating the Cowboys.
Who will be one and done, and who will begin a magical run.
This is not a team in Minnesota that you would sit back and go, oh my God, their record indicates what type of team they are.
We're the winner, we go home. What do you want to do?
Coverage begins every morning at 6 Eastern with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. And it continues all day right here on ESPN Radio. You're listening to the College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
9:24 to go, fourth quarter. Georgia on its way to the national title, leads TCU 59-7. Sean McDonough with Todd Blackledge. Ian Fitzsimmons is down on the sideline along with Chris Budden. It was another Kirby Smart timeout to give some of his star defensive players a curtain call. Robert Beal, Christopher Smith, Keely Ringo, Jalen Carter all came out to a huge ovation. And Nolan Smith, who was injured against Florida in midseason, a senior, is here tonight in his street clothes, and he came out onto the edge of the field and did a little victory lap. He was one of the 3 returning starters. Figures to be a high draft pick. It is a complete celebration, and deservedly so.
Yep.
Max Duggan, not the way he hoped to finish his career, takes a shotgun snap, hands it off to DeMercado, and he's smothered for a loss of a couple of yards. Tresman Marshall, backup linebacker.
I remember when we did that Oregon game in week 1, and we talked to Nolan Smith, and we said, what would you want us to tell people that have questions about the defense and all the guys you lost, like Chris Budden reported? He said, just watch.
Just watch.
And you know what? We've watched all year. This is another great Georgia defense.
And he said, how could you possibly be as good? You lost 8 defensive players in the draft. And Duggan is sacked. Took a shotgun snap and immediately had Tyke Smith, a blitzing safety on him. They're not calling off the dogs, no pun intended, as they come blitzing. Max Duggan with a 52-point lead. You're going to fight all the way to the end. Brinson was also nearby. And they had 8 players taken in the draft off the defense, 15 total, 5 first-round defensive players. Yep. The numbers not quite as good defensively, but remarkably close, because they just keep reloading with recruits. That's the 4th Georgia sack of the night. They're back on the 14-yard line, 3rd down and 21. 8:10 to go. Max Duggan under pressure again. Max Duggan finally gets it off, and it is caught out at the 30-yard line. Nice catch by Blair Conright. Just his 5th of the season for the junior from Lubbock, and that was vintage Max Duggan. It looked 2 or 3 times like they were going to sack him, and he battled his way to a completion.
Yeah, just kind of maneuvered and manipulated the pocket enough right before he was going to get squashed.
1st and 10 midway through the 4th quarter. No, it's 4th and 6. I'm sorry, they were short of the first down. Here comes a blitz, and he's sacked by a blitzer from his right, Jalen Walker. And he's a true freshman. So if you're expecting a drop-off, we'll probably talk to him next year, Todd, and say, how could you possibly be as good? And he'll say, just watch. He went right by Amari DeMercado, and who could not pick up the blitz. It's the first career sack for the freshman from Salisbury, North Carolina. And they turn it over on downs. They had their own 19. With exactly 7:30 to go. 11th possession for Georgia. On the first 10, they've scored 9 times, including 8 touchdowns. They've punted once. Handoff by Carson Beck. Branson Robinson running toward the end zone and into it. He ran off left tackle and took it all the way to the end zone along the near side. A 19-yard touchdown run. His second here in the 4th quarter. And it looked like all of the fight has gone out of the Frogs. Not a very spirited effort to take down Branson Robinson. They're probably exhausted. They were also hurt by the fact that there was a blatant hold on the offensive line that was not called.
Well, you've got the same defenders in the game and all new offensive linemen and tight ends and running backs in for Georgia. Fresh legs versus tired legs, and an easy touchdown for the Bulldogs.
Austin Blasky, a backup lineman, with a blatant hold that was not called. And the extra point is no good. My goodness, maybe he's just worn out. Jack Podlesny with just the 2nd PAT miss by a Georgia kicker since 2014. He hooked it wide left. So it's only 65-7 Georgia with 7:23 to go in the 4th quarter. This is the College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, presented by Wendy's.
Did you miss Canty and Carlin?
I could see somebody in the NFL, the right situation, coming to him.
Here's my problem. If you're Kirby Smart, the way that you approach your program will not work in the NFL.
I don't know, man. I can understand why a collegiate coach that's had the success that Kirby Smart has had would consider the NFL. And then the other part about it is, Carlin, if it doesn't work out in the NFL, it's not as if Kirby Smart couldn't go back to college like Nick Saban did.
Canty and Carlin, weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio. You can also listen and watch on the ESPN app. Mike Greenberg, Greeny.
Bubba, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to put together a committee on how we can go about trying to improve the officiating in college football. Well, I'd like you to chair that committee. How does that work?
They lose their job based on a Twitter poll we do at the end of the game if they get the call wrong.
That's Elon Musk's next poll.
Greeny with Mike Greenberg. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Plus, you can watch and listen on the ESPN app. Keyshawn Johnson, Jay Williams, and Max Kellerman.
Tom Brady, and I get the legacy behind Tom Brady, but it's because of all the injuries on that team and where that team is, and even watching that game against Carolina, that team doesn't scare me. The upside for Green Bay scares me, right? We talked a lot about the young receivers and how that's going to come together for Aaron Rodgers and that rhythm. I mean, but their defense held Minnesota to 17 points. You can say whatever the hell you want about, teams going up and down, or what you want to say about Minnesota, but like Minnesota still has been in every single game. Like, they made that game look very different, 41-17. Minnesota still is a good team. You may not think they're going to get there, right, when it's all said and done, but 41-17 is a pretty convincing win. So I think that defense and then the upside, the ceiling for Green Bay is drastically different than the ceiling for Tampa.
Key, Jay, and Max, mornings on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. You're listening to the College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Jack Podlesny had made 111 PATs in a row. He just missed one. So it's 65-7 for Georgia with 7:23 to go in the fourth quarter. This is going to be one of the worst defeats in TCU history. They're down by 58 points. Right now, that would be the 6th worst defeat in the history of their football program, which goes back to the 1800s. Proud history, 2 national championships in 1935 and 1938. And this is a horrible ending to what was a magnificent season. But Sonny Dykes did say, Todd, before the game, it's not going to be a great season if we don't win this game. We got here. We won't consider it a success. But with all the exposure they got this year, their recruiting, they've won the best recruiting years they've ever had. They're doing well again in the transfer portal. They're going to be a factor on the national stage. The kickoff from Podlesny is a touchback as it bounced into the end zone.
One of the reasons I think they will continue to do extremely well in the transfer portal is, Texas is such a great high school football state, and there are so many recruits that come out of the state of Texas, and guys go from Texas to other schools. It doesn't work out. They want to come back home, and TCU offers a chance for a lot of guys from Texas to come back and play in state. So I think they'll continue to recruit well and use the transfer portal well.
Well, as a new quarterback for TCU, I'm a little surprised that Sonny Dykes didn't give Max Duggan a curtain call. Chandler Morris is in. He hands it off, and Amari DiMercato runs ahead for about 9 yards out to the 34-yard line. So Duggan's career ends in major disappointment. But what a remarkable career. 14 out of 22 tonight for just 152, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The young man is one of the top quarterback recruits in the country. For the most part, their starter the last 3 years. There's DiMercato taking a handoff up the middle and out to the 41 for a first down. But he lost the job with the new coaching staff. Chandler Morris is in now, started the opener. As you said, Todd, a lot of guys would have just jumped right in the transfer portal. He said, hey, if you want me to be the backup quarterback, I'll be the best backup quarterback I can be. Got the opportunity when Morris got hurt in the opener against Colorado and has had one of the great seasons in TCU football history. And he's on to the NFL draft. Morris, the son of Chad Morris, the former SMU and Arkansas head coach, hands off to DiMercato, runs out of bounds.
Yeah, both
no gain on that play as he went out of bounds on the far sideline.
Both these TCU quarterbacks, their dads were coaches. Max Duggan's dad, Jim, was his high school football coach. Chad Morris, you mentioned the college place. He's now the head coach at Allen High School in Texas, a high school powerhouse.
A lot of the sons of coaches involved in this game. We've mentioned Sonny Dykes, the son of the legendary Spike Dykes. Here's a play fake by Morris. He takes off running around left end, out of bounds with a short gain at the 45-yard line. One thing I think will be very emotional for Kirby Smart tonight. His dad, Sonny, Hall of Fame high school coach in Georgia. He was Kirby's high school coach in Bainbridge, Georgia. Been at basically every game since Kirby's been the head coach. He's battling some serious health issues, not able to make it here tonight. And Kirby Smart, very emotional. We talked about that. Morris's pass batted in the air and incomplete, knocked out of the air by Jalen Walker, and it fell to the turf along the TCU sideline. 65-7, Georgia leads, 5:14 to go. The over-under, if you follow such things, we're told went off at 61.5 total. So Georgia did that all by itself. So it's 65 tonight. Jordy Sandy's going to come on to punt. The Australian who's been donating money for every punt downed inside the 20-yard line to autism charities. He has a cousin back in Australia who battles autism. His punt is a fair catch made by Mackay Muse, getting a chance to get into the championship game back at the 25-yard line. Very touched by what Jordy Sandy did. Our good pal Mark Cohen is the great sports information director at TCU has two autistic sons, Adam and Steve, and he's been working with Jordy Sandy on that. And we want to thank Mark Cohen and Claude Felton and his staff at Georgia. The sports information directors are some of the most underappreciated, hardest working people in college athletics, and they are two of the very best and even better people. Carson Beck still the quarterback. He hands it off. And it's Clark, the ball carrier, Savon Clark, getting his first carry of the night. Out of bounds around the right end for a gain of 6. We're under 5 minutes to go in this championship game. 65 points, the most ever by any team in the college football playoff or BCS national championship game dating back to 1998. USC, the previous high in the title game, 55 against Oklahoma in 2005. Beck hands it off. It's Clark again with running room around the right end. And he goes out of bounds near midfield. Chased out by Abe Kamara. If it stays like this, the 58-point margin would be the second largest ever in any game played between two top 5 teams in the AP poll. The record is 59 points when Army beat Notre Dame 59-0 back in 1944. Our information people working hard tonight. Brian Taylor, our statistician here in the booth, and Zach Rapatrazone, our spotter, going deep into the depth chart for Georgia now. Clark was not on it. He gets another handoff. And he skips into TCU territory to the 45-yard line with 3.5 to go, a 5-yard gain. Kirby Smart, headset off. Takes a lot for him to relax, but he looks pretty relaxed on that sideline now.
Last year when they won, it ended a drought. They hadn't won a national championship at Georgia since 1980. Herschel Walker was running the ball for the Bulldogs, and Vince Dooley was the head coach. Now they're on the verge of winning back-to-back. And they're the new kings of college football.
On 2nd and 5. A handoff, Beck to Clark again. He dives forward, comes down about a yard short of the first down. Tackled by Jamoy Hodge. Himself a great story. Had one scholarship offer out of high school in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. That was to Division II Wingate, so he went to junior college. Wound up at TCU. And is one of their best defensive players. 2.5 minutes to go. SoFi Stadium about half full now. It's the red and black clad fans who have hung around for the celebration. Most of those in purple have made their way into the rainy Southern California night. The handoff to Clark on 3rd and 2. He runs right and has a first down with a yard to spare. Tripped up again by Jamoy Hodge. This will be the 17th win in a row. We're going to empty the bucket on all these Nuggets. That will match the school record for Georgia. They won 17 in a row back in 1945 to 47.
Well, if the late, great Larry Munson were here right now, he might say something like, "There's going to be some property damage tonight here in Los Angeles."
What do you say? We stepped on their face with a
hobnail
boot or something. Yeah. One of the legendary broadcasters in college football history. Enjoying this one undoubtedly in the broadcast booth in the sky. They're going to take a knee now with a minute and a half to go on 1st and 10. Beck goes down on a knee. Kirby Smart has been doused with the Gatorade bucket. Last year they didn't really get a good piece of him, just his right shoulder. He led his alma mater to the national title. First coach to do that since Philip Fulmer, Tennessee, back in 1998. Only 4 head coaches have won more than one national title at their alma mater. Entering tonight, now it's 5. Bear Bryant won 6 at Alabama. Frank Leahy 4 at his alma mater, Notre Dame. Bernie Bierman of Minnesota won 3. Red Blake of Army 2. Now Kirby Smart, at age 47, has won his 2nd The clock down to 36 seconds to go. And Todd, to me, this means they've taken over from Alabama as the premier program in college football right now.
And I don't see them taking any step backs anytime soon either.
They've taken a knee for the last time. Still 20 seconds on the clock, but players on both sides heading toward the middle of the field to congratulate each other. Sonny Dykes shaking hands with Kirby Smart and offering his congratulations. The Georgia Bulldogs, as the clock goes to 2-1, are the national champions. First repeat champions in the college football playoff era. Now 9 years, Stetson Bennett and Max Duggan, who hit it off at the Heisman Trophy ceremony last month, shake hands. They're both on, awaiting their fate in the NFL draft. And confetti is flying from several different angles here at SoFi Stadium. They were the 5th team to have a chance to defend the national title in the 9 years of the CFP. Georgia is the first to do it successfully, and they did it in remarkably dominant fashion, outgaining TCU 589 to 188. Led by Stetson Bennett, who passed for 304 and 4 touchdowns, ran for 2 touchdowns on just 3 carries, 39 yards rushing, total 6 touchdowns responsible for, making history, one of many bits of history made tonight. Kirby Smart and his family posing for pictures. Wife Mary Beth was an athlete at Georgia back in the late 90s when Kirby started as a defensive back. Kirby Smart, I think tonight, if he hadn't done already, punched his ticket someday to the College Football Hall of Fame.
I think I thought he was already in, maybe not.
Confetti continues to fly. The Horned Frogs are off the field. It's now just the Bulldogs on the field. They're setting up the podium to award the trophy for the 2nd year in a row to Georgia. Georgia ran for 254, passed for 335. They held TCU to 188 total, just 36 on the ground for the Horned Frogs, who are averaging more than 200, and 152 passing yards for Max Duggan.
Stetson Bennett will be gone next year, but Brock Bowers will be back, and I'll tell you what, he's as good a football player as we've seen all season. He is really an outstanding tight end, and it's really not even fair to call him a tight end because he's as much of a wide receiver as he is a tight end. Yeah, he can do it all.
He had 7 catches for 152 and a touchdown. They obviously went away from the passing game late. That receiving yardage total was 2 yards short of his career high. Ladd McConkey was battling leg injuries. 5 catches for 88 and 2 touchdowns. His first multiple touchdown reception game of his career. Here's Ian Fitzsimmons.
I'm here with quarterback Stetson Bennett. Back-to-back years, I'm talking to you on this field right now. What is this like for you?
It's special, man. You know, I don't know. It's got to wash over me. This place, these fans, we're in Los Angeles. I mean, I don't know what to say. This was special. Back-to-back, baby. I don't know.
Your journey. Yep. Go back to the beginning to where you are right now. How do you sum it up?
Friggin' unrealistic. I mean, good Lord. I don't think, yeah, it's not real life. I don't know.
As far as when that moment when your head coach, Kirby Smart, calls a timeout and takes you off the field to that standing ovation, what did that feel like? What did it mean to you?
Well, I almost teared up, hugging all those dudes in the huddle. You know, there's something special about this team. And I love them.
Take a moment, man. Take a moment.
Just seeing them all in that last huddle, I don't know. It's special.
If you can't sum up, a lot of people are describing this Georgia team right now as a new dynasty in college football. How would you describe Georgia football?
National champions 2023, baby. 2022, I don't know how y'all do those years, but we won the game, and they're going to be back next year. I can promise you that.
You've had a hell of a ride. Go dry those eyes. Get on that stage, man. Congratulations. Back up to you, Sean.
All right, Ian. The last year, we remember, he was sobbing on the sideline at the end of the game. This year, tears in his eyes and choking them back, but not the full sobbing that we saw a year ago. But a remarkable career and really a remarkable young man.
He is.
Yeah, he is a very likable guy. He enjoyed the spoils of victory. Last year, he got to fly with the, was it the Blue Angels? I think he told us. He went on a trip over to Europe. He is the man in the state of Georgia, among many men, including the coach Kirby Smart, who are enormously popular and will be forever. They have won 29 games now in this 2-year span. Just the 4th team in the history of college football to do that. Clemson, the most recent in 18 and 19. Then you have to go back to the 1800s. Penn in 1896 and 97 won 29 games in 2 years, and Yale in 1894 and 95. I know you played against those two Ivy League teams and have a lot of respect for what they accomplished back in the day. They are setting up the podium in the far end zone. They'll present the national championship trophy. Back-to-back years. They waited a long time for last year's 41 years. Back to 1980 under the late, great Vince Dooley, who passed away during this season at age 90. You know, he's enjoying this. Tonight from above, 1942 was the other. Stetson Bennett now has a national championship hat on. They have some mock-ups of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Fake little section that has champs on the front. Jalen Carter is holding that up. And a disappointing end for TCU. I know Sonny Dykes said if they didn't win, it would be a disappointment, but I think when they step back, I mean, they lost to a clearly better team here tonight, and what they accomplished was amazing.
It really was. You know, the irony is they didn't win the Big 12 championship either, because the last game they lost was to Kansas State, but still a great year.
Here's Chris Budden.
Coach, you were sprinting around the sideline soaking this thing up. I don't remember that a year ago. How did this one feel different?
It was a little different because we felt like we were going to win. You know, by the third quarter, you felt like you had it. So you had more time to celebrate it. But these kids, these fans, this university means so much to my family and what it's done for me. It's an honor to be here and just awesome.
You guys dominated from the very beginning. What are you most proud of in the performance today?
The aggressiveness with which we approached it and the way the coaches called the game and the way the players played the game.
You have a nice curtain call for Stetson Bennett. What has he meant to this Georgia program?
He's meant everything. Look what he's done. He's legendary.
Appreciate it. Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you.
Ian?
Chris, thank you. I'm over here with Javon Bullard, who had 2 picks tonight and got hurt, but he's out here on the field, still padded up. Javon, take us onto the field. It's 10-7, and then all of a sudden, man, you guys hit the gas. What was that like?
It's amazing, man. All the preparation that these guys put in, myself included, it's a surreal feeling, man, knowing that all that preparation paid off.
65-7. Did you ever see this coming?
I wouldn't say that I saw it coming, but I know the group of guys that I play with, we won't leave here without a W.
As far as that Ohio State game goes, you guys got tested. You had to get a little bit, I don't want to say lucky, but you had that field goal at the end. What did that close game do for this team in the week of prep coming into the national championship?
We had 1 goal coming in and 1 goal only, and that was to get the W. No matter how we get it, whether it's ugly, whether it's pretty, we just wanted to win. So that's what we did, and I'm just so proud of this team. And like I said, it's a surreal moment. My heart warm right now, man.
Describe your quarterback, Stetson Bennett.
One word cannot even describe Stetson, man. That's a guy that we love. I know I personally love, a guy that I personally look up to. Just his story, man, is unbelievable, man. No person deserves this as much as Stetson does.
As far as the future of Georgia football, I know you want to enjoy the moment, but you guys have gone back-to-back right now. Sum up the state of this program as far as one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant right now in college football.
Like I said, I'm just going to soak in the moment right now. As far as next year, our goal is always the same goal. We try to be the best team that we can possibly be, take it 1 game at a time, and hopefully win another national championship.
Get that shoulder healed up.
Yes, sir.
Over to Chris Budden. Chris?
I'm here with Brock Bowers. Brock, you guys dominated from the get-go. What was the game plan against TCU's defense today?
Yeah, I mean, we were going to, just play Georgia football and
run the ball and just get them sucked up and throw it deep on them. That was the plan.
Week in and week out this season, you guys have been favored. How have you been able to step up every week despite what everyone has said?
Yeah, I mean, I think some people doubted us, and we might have been favored, but everyone was trying to knock us off the pedestal, and I think we're able to respond and just come together every week and just get the job done.
Back-to-back national championships, an undefeated season. What does it say about where the Georgia program is right now?
I mean, it's on top right now. I mean, we got to put together another season next year when I'm here, so I mean, I'm excited to get to work again.
Stetson Bennett won't be there next year when you do this. How would you summarize what he means to Georgia football?
Shoot, I mean, he's everything. I mean, he's still the 13 jerseys, and I mean, they'll be around here for a long time. And just what he did was so special to the team, and I'm just so proud of him, so happy for him.
Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
John?
All right, Chris, thank you. So the contrast, Ian alluded to it. They beat Ohio State by 1 in the semifinal, had to dodge a last-second 50-yard field goal by the Buckeyes to do it. They win. That was the narrowest margin of victory, by the way, ever in CFP history. And then they win by 58 in the championship game tonight, the largest margin. Fourth team to win back-to-back titles since 1990. Nebraska, USC, Alabama, and now Georgia. Stetson Bennett joining the likes of Tommy Frazier, Matt Leinart, and A.J. McCarron. And Todd, as we get ready to sign off here, no team in the poll era, which dates back to 1936, has ever won 3 straight national titles. So they'll try to make that history next year. It'll be interesting to see, but quarterback who will be playing there is a big question, but they'll come back loaded with talent again because they are loaded with talent everywhere now.
They're not going anywhere. They're going to continue to recruit. Georgia's a great football state. They're a great brand now. They can get in any living room and recruit any kid, and their talent will stay at an elite level.
As we get ready to say goodbye, Todd, just want to wish you well. As people have probably read and heard, you'll be leaving ESPN. This is your last broadcast with us as you head on to NBC to work on their Big Ten coverage. It has been the ultimate pleasure to work with you for the last 5 years and back in the old days together at CBS as well. There is no analyst I've ever worked with who's better than you in any sport or a nicer person. So thank you for the honor. Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. Love you, man.
I love you too. College football on ESPN Radio is brought to you by the Disney Bundle. Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus. Get the Disney Bundle. Plans start at $12.99 a month. You're going to have to pay for this now, you know. No more Disney Bundle for free for you if you're getting it anyway. Offer valid for eligible subscribers. Terms apply. See DisneyBundle.com for details. Our final score is Georgia 65 and TCU 7. Seems staggering to read that. For Todd Blackledge, Ian Fitzsimmons, Chris Budden, special thanks to our great producer, John Medani, our spotter all season long, Zach Padrazone, and Brian Taylor, our statistician, our rules official, Matt Austin, who was at his very best tonight. I don't think he got on the air, but he was here, if his wife is wondering. Our great engineers, Al Rosenberg and Rick Cutler. Such a pleasure to work the national championship game with these wonderful people. Sean McDonough now saying so long from SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. Congratulations to Georgia, the national champions. Here's Mark Kestisher in the studio with the postgame show.
Sean, thank you so much. Todd, best of luck in your endeavors. And before we continue on in this Georgia route of a championship victory, let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. You're listening to the College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. College football on ESPN Radio has been presented by Wendy's. Get a rich, creamy, limited time only peppermint frosty from Wendy's today. I'll be joined by Trevor Maddich and Kirk Morrison. We will go through this Georgia victory, 55 unanswered points, back-to-back championships, and an unbeaten 15-0 season, 65-7 over TCU. That's coming up next. This is the College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Coming up Tuesday, we will have a full breakdown of College Football National Championship and continue to monitor NFL Coaching Carousel. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, Tuesday, 6 a.m. Eastern, ESPN Radio, ESPN2, ESPNU.
Hey, it's Greeny, and congratulations to the Georgia Bulldogs doing something that has so seldom been done before. Back-to-back national champs will be the place for all the reaction and insight. It's Greeny, starting 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
The Right Time
with Bomani Jones.
That was a Ryan Day vindication game. Even if they did not win that, like Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama, the three schools they get to play. Texas A&M's popped in and done a little something, but for years, those three had been a tier above everybody else. And if you're going to be Ohio State, you have to be competitive with Georgia. You have to be competitive when you play Alabama. Last time they played Alabama, they were not competitive. They were very competitive in this game.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
You can listen or follow on the ESPN app or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Jason Fitz and Harry Douglas are Fitz and Harry.
They're doing what's right and being empathetic towards the Buffalo Bills. And I think in this instant, you have the human element finally coming out of the National Football League. This is the best that we can do to just make everything right. Is everything going to make sense? No, it's not. Is everything going to be fair? No, it's not. Life isn't fair because DeMar Hamlin still is fighting for his life.
Fitz and Harry, weekdays at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. Mike Greenberg, Greeny.
Cam, I can't help but notice that you have played boy band music coming out of every commercial break. Is the reason that you were doing that because I think you look like one of the Jonas Brothers?
That may be the reason, yes. Maybe next break I'll just come back singing myself.
I recommend against that.
I sang in high school, but it has been a while.
It can't be that long ago. You're like 17.
How old are you, Cam?
25.
Oh, my God.
1997.
Older than
1997, I was
born. So you were born in 1997?
Yes.
It's the most depressing thing I've ever heard.
Didn't you start here before that?
Yes, I started here before that. I was working at ESPN when you were born. That's a horrible thing for me to have to say out loud. I actually have children almost your age. I am literally old enough to be your father, and I can't tell you how much that sucks. Get Nuno back. Nuno's old and seems older. Like Nuno's in his 40s and he acts 70.
And he looks 80.
That is exactly right.
Greeny with Mike Greenberg. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Plus, you can watch and listen on the ESPN app. Did you miss Canty and Carlin?
Aaron Rodgers is not winning games. What he is doing is not screwing it up.
He's not losing.
Yeah, that's what he's doing.
Well, there's something to be said for not losing games, but we reserve.
Not when you're making $50 billion
but
a year.
that's my point. We reserve that for middle-of-the-road quarterbacks.
Yeah. Daniel Jones, don't lose the game.
Kirk Cousins, don't lose
Exactly.
the game. Not Aaron Rodgers back-to-back MVP.
Canty and Carlin, weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio. You can also listen and watch on the ESPN app.
You listen to him every morning on the ESPN Radio. Now listen to me take him to task. Keyshawn Johnson joins me on Tuesdays, right here on First Take, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN.
You're listening to the College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Mark Kestisher, Trevor Maddich, Kirk Morrison with you. The College Football Live post-game show. A domination and a coronation for the Georgia Bulldogs. 65-7. That was the final score tonight at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. Remember, this is the same Georgia Bulldogs team that trailed by 14 points in the fourth quarter, New Year's Eve, against Ohio State, and came back for the largest comeback in the Kirby Smart era at Georgia, and it afforded them a chance to try to go back-to-back, something that hasn't happened in college football in the FBS since the 2011 and 2012 Alabama Crimson Tide. How did Georgia do it? Let's get to our game flow. It's brought to you by Progressive. Your small business keeps you on the go. Progressive Commercial Insurance keeps your policy within reach with their easy-to-use mobile app. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com. Well, TCU had the first drive of the game, and the question was, they got it done against the Michigan defense. Could they get it done against the Georgia defense? They went 3 and out on their first drive, and the first offensive series for Georgia began at their own 43-yard line and marched down to the TCU 21, and Stetson Bennett took it from there.
Bennett out of the gun. Edwards, the running back, on his left hip. It's a fake handoff. Bennett keeps it around the left corner, inside the 5, and he scores. A great fake to Edwards heading to the right. Bennett kept it and ran around the left end and was untouched as he ran along the numbers into the end zone. A 21-yard rushing touchdown for Stetson Bennett.
Trevor, I'll start with you. We kind of mentioned at halftime that it was a portent of things to come, but it just showed Georgia was just a little bit faster tonight. We saw it right from the beginning.
And they learned lessons from TCU's win over Michigan. TCU's defense against Michigan clogged up the inside running lanes, and they hit the gaps. They got into the backfield. So Georgia, instead of trying to decode all that between the tackles, they hit a lot of plays off tackle and outside. This was one of those plays outside. They pulled left tackle Broderick Jones out wide. He got the block on the edge that sprung the quarterback, Stetson Bennett, for that long touchdown. But it was a portent of things to come because it showed that Georgia wasn't going to worry too much about what was going on inside. They were going to hit the edges.
Yeah, not only did they hit the edges, but they were able to, I think, just throw off the game plan for what TCU wanted to do defensively. They wanted to keep everything in between the tackles. They wanted to show Georgia, hey, guess what? We can man up in between the tackles. But I think Georgia, realizing that, they attacked the edges a lot more. They got to the outside. And it was the quarterback runs, I think, that you didn't truly expect, but yet that's what hurt, I thought, TCU early in the football game. And then once that started going, now you've got guys not doing their job. That's what we heard throughout the broadcast, right? Joe Gillespie's defensive guys weren't doing their job because they were worried about doing this and worried about doing that. And we saw way too many wide open wide receivers or tight ends down the field. Stetson Bennett didn't take much. Or didn't need much. They didn't need much time and was able to connect throughout this game.
Yeah, another problem, too, for TCU was 3 first-half turnovers. They're down 7-0. Darius Davis fumbled at the 33. Javon Bullard recovered that one. However, the TCU defense held Georgia to a field goal, so 10-0. And then TCU gets on track, a touchdown. Max Duggan, a 2-yard score. It's 10-7. TCU is only down 3. That would be the last time they would score in the game. Georgia's offensive machine got it going. There were a lot of plays of the game. I gave it to Stetson Bennett starting the 55 unanswered point streak.
1st and 10. Snap to Bennett. He drops back deep. Throwing deep. Wide open receiver. Lord McConkey, a touchdown. In the left third of the end zone. He got behind the defense. Nobody in white and purple near him. It's a 37-yard scoring play.
Play of the game brought to you by Wendy's. Get a rich, creamy, limited-time-only peppermint frosty from Wendy's today. 37 yards, Bennett to McConkey. Why was he so open?
He was so open for a couple of reasons. One of them is that they used tempo and a sugar huddle. So in other words, Georgia ran a play, and then after that play ended, they immediately lined back up again after a short huddle to run the next play, and that confused the coverage. McConkey lined up wide left, and inside of him in the slot was tight end Brock Bowers lined up as a wide receiver. Well, when McConkey went straight down the field down the left seam, the corner covering him thought the safety inside was going to pick him up when he went deep. But that safety covered Brock Bowers, who got up to occupy the safety's attention. And so McConkey ended up wide open for that touchdown pass.
Yeah, it's a great point by Trevor. And as a former defensive player, that's one of those plays that you have to communicate before they even come out of the huddle. You may have to have a call, a vanilla call is what we say, that everyone knows, because if they speed out of the huddle and they get to the line of scrimmage and they quick count, you need everybody on the same page. When you're still trying to point out what you're doing on a defensive play, and guess what? The offense is already at the line of scrimmage, hands under center, ball's about to come out, and you don't even know what you're doing defensively. That's where you're going to get the mistakes, the wide open players, and we just saw that too many times for TCU today. They were prepared, but I don't know if they were prepared for the way that Georgia was coming out of the huddle with great speed and tempo. And that's how some of those big plays happen, like you mentioned, like we just heard, the one from McConkey.
17-7 there, and they were just getting running because Stetson Bennett, 6-yard touchdown run on a 92-yard drive, made it 24-7, and not to be forgotten, the Georgia defense as well.
Snap from the left hash mark. He throws short to the right, and it's intercepted. Javon Bullard stepped in front of the pass, picked it off, and went down near the 22-yard line, far side of the field. And Max Duggan just continues to throw interceptions now over a 3-game stretch. He's thrown more in the last 3 than he had thrown in the first 11.
So 2 interceptions, fumble recovery for Bullard. He did leave just before halftime with a shoulder injury, but it's part of the story, Trevor, of the Georgia team that won a championship a year ago, lost all those first-round picks, many of them on the defensive side. They get hammered defensively the last 2 games, Ohio State, and previous to that in the SEC championship game to LSU. But they came to play tonight and got 3 turnovers in the first half.
They absolutely did, and they were so well coached. They were so well prepared. This interception by Bullard was an example of that. Max Duggan, the quarterback for TCU, was pressing by this point. He was trying to force plays to happen. And on that play, Duggan looked to his right at the receiver, and the whole time he stared down the receiver. Bullard knew then, based on the route combination, exactly where he was going to throw, and he just waited for that ball to come out of the quarterback's hands, stepped in front of the receiver, and picked it off. I mean, you can say that that was great coverage, and it was, but really it was great preparation. And it was combined with the fact that by this time, the Georgia defense had gotten inside the head of Heisman Trophy runner-up, quarterback for TCU, Max Duggan.
Yeah, you mentioned it, Mark. 5. That's the number, 5. First-round draft picks from that Georgia defense of a year ago. That's what they had to replace on defense. And yet the defensive performance we saw today was outstanding. You remember Bullard, he's only a sophomore. So guess what? We'll get a chance to see him again next year, along with Brock Bowers. So this was a defense today for Georgia that had a good mix of, if you want to call juniors age, with a little youth and sophomores and freshmen, but they were able to make a team like TCU. And look, we cannot state this enough. Kendre Miller was not available, okay? And when he was not available, the running back for TCU, obviously we knew that this team was going to be trying to find and search ways to rush the football. They couldn't do that. And with that being said, you had a Georgia defense that kind of smelled blood in the water. They were sharks. They knew that the quarterback would have to get rid of the football a lot quicker than he wanted to. And if they kept him in the well, if they kept him in the pocket, they knew that they could undercut some routes. And you saw that the way that the safeties were able to stay on top and make plays on the football. It was a terrific game plan, by Georgia. But more importantly, they did it with just a 4-man rush. Very rarely did they have the blitz. It was one of those efforts where you just knew Georgia was just a better team, especially defensively.
Yeah, and that's something they couldn't say all year long, Kirk, was with 4 guys to get out there and get enough pressure. They did it today, and those 2 Javon Bullard picks in the second quarter, both were cashed in with touchdowns. So Georgia scored 6 times on 6 drives, led 38-7 at halftime, and then in the second half, Stetson Bennett wasn't done.
Out of the gun again, Bennett. The running back's McIntosh on his right. Plenty of time for Bennett as he takes the snap. Throwing toward the end zone. Caught again. Brock Bowers caught it at the goal line and scores a touchdown. What a night he is having. That's a 22-yard score.
Kirk, they had it all. I mean, the tight ends, you're hearing it there. The running backs, Gash got their lanes. We talked about the defense. I mean, it was all phases. Well, I guess except for a missed extra point late for Georgia in this back-to-back.
Well, the best player on the field, non-quarterback, was Brock Bowers. I mean, obviously we know what Stetson Bennett was able to throw for 304 yards, 4 touchdowns throwing. He had the 2 rushing. But Brock Bowers, it's unfortunate for sometimes players are this good. I guess lucky for us as college football fans that we'll get a chance to see the best tight end in all of college football return for his junior season. But this is a guy who was playing like a man amongst boys. And there was just no one from TCU that was going to guard him. Me, you, Trevor, we talked about it in the pregame show. How would this TCU defense stop Brock Bowers? Well, guess what? They couldn't. And I think right now they still can't, even though the game's already over. He was that much of a factor in this football game. And that's one of the reasons why Georgia was able to get something started early, because they got Brock Bowers started early, which is what they didn't do in the semifinal game.
Yeah, in the semifinal against Ohio State, Bowers only had 1 catch in the first 3 quarters. And he had finished with 4 catches, and that's it in the win over Ohio State. He had 7 catches for 152 yards today. And that touchdown that we're talking about that you just played, Kesty, was a great example of why. I mean, Bowers was singled up on a safety. That poor soul had to cover Brock Bowers one-on-one, but he was right there. I mean, Bowers was running into the end zone. The safety was right on him. I mean, literally blanketing him. The ball wasn't very well thrown. It wasn't thrown out in front of Bowers. It was kind of thrown short. So Bowers had to turn back where the safety was. And it was a fight for the football. From the moment it came down and touched hands to the moment they hit the ground, they're still fighting for the football. But if you're fighting Brock Bowers for a football, you better be some kind of Godzilla. Because it's just an example of one of the reasons that Georgia dominated this game. Georgia's guy was better than TCU's guy.
45-7 there. Went to 52-7. Another Bennett touchdown pass. TCU, meanwhile, in the second half, punted first 2 drives of the third quarter, turned it over on downs early in the fourth. That gave the ball back to Georgia. Stetson Bennett, we were wondering how much longer was he going to be in the game. He came onto the field. He handed off the ball, and then
the play clock is running all the way down, and Kirby Smart's going to use a timeout as it goes to 1 second. The Bulldogs are still in a huddle. And I think it might be a curtain call here for Bennett. Yes, it is. That's why they did that. Wow. Kirby Smart walks out near the numbers on the near sideline, gives Bennett a hug.
I love that.
And that will do it for a legendary career for Stetson Bennett.
Stetson Bennett, 304 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, ran for 2, had 2 fourth-quarter comebacks, championship game last year, semifinals this year, Trevor, and capped off one of the more improbable, greatest college football careers in history, and certainly in Georgia history.
One of the few quarterbacks to ever win back-to-back national championships. The only Georgia quarterback to win back-to-back national championships, and with all the great quarterbacks that have played there, you can make the case that in terms of production, Stetson Bennett is the greatest ever. And I love that curtain call, because if they just would have pulled him out after a drive or after a score, then he would have been on the sideline. That would have been it. By putting him on the field and then calling timeout on second down, they allowed him to have the cameras on him on the field, for the fans to be able to hold up envelopes, because his nickname is the mailman, for his teammates to kind of meet him before he came off the field all the way, with the hugs and the accolades, with the coach there to hug him. And he deserved that moment. And the way they did it, by calling that timeout with Bennett on the field, instead of after a drive, he's on the sideline and they make the decision that he's not going to go back in, was a fitting tribute to the way he ran his career at Georgia.
You know, Trevor, I couldn't agree more with you. And I think it was because of the way that the game was played, you were able to dictate something like this. They're blowing TCU out to where you can actually have a moment. And the Georgia fan base, the people watching, Kirby Smart, right, the entire defense, everybody had all eyes on their quarterback that has led them over the last couple seasons. They know the story. They know how he rose to stardom. And everyone to a man is saying he is the most deserving of this honor or of this praise. And so if this had been a close game, I don't think we had that opportunity. Trevor, if this game's tight in the fourth quarter, we don't have this opportunity to give the thanks and the praise to Stetson Bennett. But I'll say this, after today, after tonight, this career, Stetson is more than a cologne, right? He is a outstanding quarterback that so many people will know. He's a legend in college football. He is supplanted. When you say the name Stetson Bennett, you'll always remember two-time national champion starting quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Who started as a walk-on, then left for junior college, came back, went 29-3 as a starter, including 17 straight victories. Georgia wins the championship for the second year in a row, 65-7 over TCU. We have already heard from all the Georgia luminaries. Coming up next on College Football Live, rough ending to a Cinderella story for TCU. We'll hear from their head coach, Sonny Dykes, coming up next. And now that Georgia's won back-to-back, can they three-peat? This is the College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Tuesday on Canty and Carlin, Georgia has won their second straight national championship.
And we'll tell you if Kirby Smart's next play call could be in the NFL.
It's Tuesday, Canty and Carlin, 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio on the ESPN app.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max.
If I happen to be in an area
where there was any type of bear at all, and you were with me, Max, and something was going on, I would try to help. I think if I had like a bat or something,
you try what you can.
Something I could spook them. But that's why I don't do stuff like that. Why I'm not even putting myself in an area where there's bear.
GJ and Max, followed by Greeny. Mornings on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. This is Greeny with Mike Greenberg.
As I reach the walkway, someone is walking towards me. It was Paul freaking McCartney. And I did the worst thing I've ever done in my life.
Oh, God.
I looked over at our section of the pool and yelled to Stace to look over and see what was going on. Thankfully, I didn't yell, "Hey, Paul McCartney is standing right here," but I may as well have. Everyone at the pool, 50 people, look up, and he's kind of got to walk away fast, and the people who he is with are staring at me with exactly the disdain that I deserve.
Oh, my God.
And I'll tell you, it ruined like 2 days of my trip. Paul McCartney, my idol, my hero. I ruined a Beatles day.
Greeny with Mike Greenberg. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Plus, you can watch and listen on the ESPN app.
The Mina Kimes Show, featuring Lenny.
And we should know, and I assume you saw this, but it's too late to take back your pick.
I can tell you I saw that because I was the one that texted that to you.
Oh, I missed that. I can confirm you texted that to me, and I wrote back, "Damn, that would be huge." This was an hour and a half ago in my defense. I've been busy.
Listen and subscribe to The Mina Kimes Show, featuring Lenny, wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Ravens, they just lost Devin Duvernay, too. Did you see that? They picked up Sammy Watkins. It's like, who among us has not desperation streamed Sammy Watkins at some point in our fantasy football lives?
Listen and subscribe to The Mina Kimes Show, featuring Lenny, wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can't miss Canty and Carlin, pound for pound, the biggest show on ESPN Radio.
Chris, it's funny. We understand the situation that Lamar is in with his contract. If he is holding out to make sure that he is healthy given the situation, it's going to sound nuts. I don't blame him one bit.
No, I don't blame him either, but the fact that that could be a possibility is in part the problem. And that's the situation that the Baltimore Ravens have created because most functional franchises don't allow their franchise quarterback to go into a true contract season. You're talking about a $250 million decision.
Yeah.
$250 million decision.
Chris, to me, when you say that, there's no decision to be made. I am not stepping on the field until I'm 100%. And you have had every opportunity to try to get a deal done. I don't care what the circumstances were around Deshaun Watson. It happened, and that's now the precedent. And if you're going to try to use this against me while you were hurt at the end of the year, then maybe I shouldn't even be here to begin with.
Canty and Carlin, weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio. You can also listen and watch on the ESPN app.
Let's go, baby. We are ready for NFL playoffs this weekend.
Super Wild Card Weekend.
The story is irresistible of Tom Brady beating the Cowboys.
Who will be one and done, and who will begin a magical run.
This is not a team in Minnesota that you would sit back and go, oh my God, their record indicates what type of team they are.
We either win or we go home. What do you want to do?
Coverage begins every morning at 6 Eastern with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. And it continues all day right here on ESPN Radio. You're listening to the College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Georgia back-to-back champs, 65-7 throttling of TCU in the national championship game. Mark Kestisher, Trevor Maddich, Kirk Morrison. Our College Football Live post-game show continues on. Well, it was a great season for TCU, 5-7 last year. New head coach Sonny Dykes this year. Preseason number 7 pick in the Big 12. Went unbeaten until losing in overtime in the Big 12 championship. It made the college football playoff, and then the stunning win over Michigan in one of the national semifinals. But it didn't happen for Sonny Dykes' team tonight. They were embarrassed in Los Angeles by 55 points. And the head coach of TCU, Mr. Sonny Dykes, speaking with the media just a short time ago.
Well, tough one tonight. I think anybody that saw that knew, could see that we certainly didn't play our best. You got to give Georgia a ton of credit. They did a tremendous job of getting their team ready to play. Those guys came out and played exceptionally well. They've got a very good football team. really talented, and the thing that I was impressed about Georgia coming into the game is, they played hard all the time and they played well and really had a lot of pride in their performance and the way they played, and you could see it today. They did an excellent job. Thought the quarterback really played an outstanding game. Tight end obviously played an outstanding game as well, and we've got a good football team, and it was a tough one tonight. We'll evaluate what happened. Couldn't be more proud of our football team, though, and especially these two young men that are up here with me right now, just for what they've meant to TCU football and just what kind of people they are. And I think we're all disappointed, and that we didn't play better, and we didn't coach better, and we didn't represent our team better than we did tonight. But we'll learn from it, and next time we're on a stage like this, we'll handle it better.
TCU coach Sonny Dykes and Kirk, this is what we're looking for in a couple of years from now, whenever the 12-team playoff gets underway, as you could see a Cinderella story, not a blue blood that makes its way into the national championship game. They got that far. They had the moment in the sun on New Year's Eve, just didn't have anything, no answers tonight on the big stage for the first time for many of those folks.
Yeah, and I don't want to second-guess TCU, right? This was a good football team. They had some outstanding wins. You go back to the last-second win at Baylor. You go back to, the conference championship game. They didn't win, but they took it to overtime against Kansas State. And obviously, we know about the game against Michigan, the Fiesta Bowl. This was a good football team. But the one thing about the college football playoff and just college football in general, you have to be at your best when you go out and play. It's a one-game event. And today they had a bad game. TCU had a bad game.
I think we lost Kirk there from Los Angeles for the moment. But yes, I agree. They had a bad game, certainly, but it doesn't take away, Trevor, from what they were able to do this. I guess it stains it, but I think as Sean McDonough pointed out at the end of the broadcast, when you step away from it for a little while, you can find the positive aspects.
Right. I mean, TCU had one of the greatest seasons in their history. They went undefeated in the regular season. They made the college football playoff. They beat Michigan in the semifinal to get to this point. The problem that we have is the emotional side of it. Because stepping away from it, Kesty, is what you need to do, right? Because logically, it was a phenomenal season. Their quarterback was the Heisman Trophy runner-up, right? This was a team that was talked about nationally all season long. And once they finally got going, early on, people realized in September, this is a pretty good team right here. Then they kept on coming back from deficits to keep winning games, and they were a national darling, a national conversation all year. What they have to overcome now is the emotion of this loss. College football is emotion, and this loss puts a very negative emotional cover over the last time we see them, and it will stay there until they start playing again in September of 2023. But that emotion shouldn't take away from the accomplishment of these players and these coaches, because that accomplishment was extraordinary.
Hey, Kirk, we'll let you finish your thought there, because we were rudely interrupted by technology for a moment. And maybe still rudely interrupted by technology.
I think the Hypno Frog is over there pulling his plug, because they know they're saying stuff about him.
We can see Kirk in Los Angeles, but we can't hear him. Oh, we do have him, I'm told. Kirk, there we go. You're back.
Yeah, they're breaking down the booth because the national championship. They've got slow music playing in the background, confetti still falling. It's raining outside the stadium. It was already half empty with TCU fans leaving early. The Georgia fans have stayed for a little bit, but it's a coronation. It is a coronation for the Georgia Bulldogs, and it's a coronation, I think, for TCU, an outstanding football team this season. And I think it gives hope to a lot of teams that you can go into next year, 2023, like Trevor said, unranked, and have an opportunity to run a table and get to a college football playoff, a college football national championship game. So regardless of the outcome tonight for TCU, I think it gives college football a lot of hope for the future.
One more thought for us here on College Football Live postgame show, and there'll be much more at this Georgia 65-7 win over TCU. Freddie and Fitzsimmons coming up as soon as we're done here. The Georgia Bulldogs already, if you're looking to Vegas, are the betting favorites to win a third national championship in a row. ESPN's Mark, that's right, at NRG Stadium. ESPN's Mark Schlabach always puts out his way too early top 25 that we get to sink our teeth into as soon as the championship game is over. He's got Georgia as number one. I'll put it out to both of you. Trevor, you first. Can the Dogs three-peat next year?
They could. I mean, who thought they would lose 15 guys to the NFL draft, others to the transfer portal, and they would come back and win the national championship in dominating fashion? I would say this: watch out for the Buckeyes, because they still have receivers Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka coming back. Running backs Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson will be back. This should be a Buckeyes team that'll be very, very dangerous. And so, yeah, it's fine for me to say, hey, Georgia's the front runner in the way too early national championship race next year. But I think there are going to be some really good teams that are going to challenge them.
Yeah, Trevor, who were our final four finalists for the Heisman Trophy? They were all quarterbacks. That was the one thing for Georgia. We could talk about the 15 players they lost in the draft, but the one guy they didn't lose was the quarterback, Stetson Bennett. This will be a little bit different next year as a new quarterback will take over the system under Todd Monken. That's why I'm a little skeptical about them going for the three-peat. I like your thought process there. Looking at a team like Ohio State, what does Caleb Williams and USC do next year as well? Alabama, will they replace, obviously Bryce Young now, who's going off to the NFL? So I think Georgia currently, yes, number one team because of what they have coming back in terms of returners, Brock Bowers and Bullard, who we saw today. But, man, who will be the quarterback? Maybe we saw one today, but you never know. We never know what it's going to look like.
It'll be Carson Beck, who came in relief of Stetson Bennett, who had 4 touchdown passes, 2 touchdown runs, 65-7. Georgia finishes off TCU for the national championship. Always great to work with Trevor and Kirk. Their job's not done yet. They'll be moving over to Freddie and Fitzsimmons to take you through more of this national championship victory for the Georgia Bulldogs. Let's pay off our trivia question, which was brought to you by Dr. Pepper. We asked Stetson Bennett, had a chance to make history at age 25. Since 1950, only 2 primary starting quarterbacks won national titles age 25 or older. It is now 3. Who were the other 2? Chris Winkie, 1999 at age 27. Claude Arnold, 1950 at the age of 26. Full coverage of tonight's college football playoff championship game coming up tomorrow morning. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern, followed by Greeny with Mike Greenberg until noon on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, and much more to come in just moments here on ESPN Radio. Final score, Georgia 65, TCU 7. Freddie and Fitzsimmons up next with Trevor and Kirk. And now for producer Rob Kelly, our technical director Camilla Ortiz, associate producer James Steele, I'm Mark Kestisher. We thank you for listening to the College Football Playoff National Championship presented by AT&T on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Tuesday on Fitz and Harry, Georgia has done it again. The Dogs back-to-back national champions.
And I'll tell you why nobody else can replicate what Kirby Smart has done.
Tuesday, Fitz and Harry, noon Eastern on ESPN Radio and watch in the ESPN app.
Mike Greenberg, Greeny.
Bubba, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to put together a committee on how we can go about trying to improve the officiating in college football. Well, I'd like you to chair that committee. How does that work?
They lose their job based on a Twitter poll we do at the end of the game if they get the call wrong.
That's Elon Musk's next poll.
Greeny with Mike Greenberg. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Plus, you can watch and listen on the ESPN app. Canty and Carlin.
Jim Harbaugh is rumored to have spoken to David Tepper, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, about their head coaching job.
Yeah, it's a tough decision that David Tepper has to make, but in weighing what direction you want to go in, I don't want it to get lost that Jim Harbaugh is a better coach than Steve Wilkes. Not just what he did with the San Francisco 49ers, but what he did at Stanford and being able to resurrect that program, what he did at Michigan, being able to resurrect that program. The guy knows how to build programs.
But he also comes with a lot of baggage. You can bring in Jim Harbaugh and pay him $20 million a year if you want. I personally would rather ride with the guy that I know my players want to see there and that, frankly, is a fan favorite in my town. When you look at how that team responded after starting 1-4 and firing the head coach, and you look at his standing in that community, hire Steve Wilkes.
Canty and Carlin, weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio. You can also listen and watch on the ESPN app.
I'm Pablo Torre, host of the podcast ESPN Daily. Every weekday morning, I will bring you the best sports story you'll hear all day. Today on ESPN Daily, the NFL regular season is over, the playoffs are in full clarity, and Mina Kimes explains all of it. Follow us and listen wherever you get good podcasts.
Keyshawn Johnson, Jay Williams, and Max Kellerman.
Tom Brady, and I get the legacy behind Tom Brady, but it's because of all the injuries on that team and where that team is, and even watching that game against Carolina, that team doesn't scare me. The upside for Green Bay scares me, right? We talked a lot about the young receivers and how that's going to come together for Aaron Rodgers and that rhythm. I mean, but their defense held Minnesota to 17 points. You can say whatever the hell you want about, teams going up and down or what you want to say about Minnesota, but like Minnesota still has been in every single game. Like they made that game look very different, 41-17. Minnesota still is a good team. You may not think they're going to get there, right, when it's all said and done, but 41-17 is a pretty convincing win. So I think that defense and then the upside, the ceiling for Green Bay is drastically different than the ceiling for Tampa.
Key, Jay, and Max, mornings on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Dominique Foxworth Show.
Send tweets to Dominique Foxworth about this, but if the Vikings do win the Super Bowl, I will do something very embarrassing on camera of the listeners/viewers choosing because they suck.
It doesn't matter. It's not going to degrade the value of their Super Bowl should they win it. But if they do win it, they're going to have to hold the Lombardi for me to be like, yeah, they're a good football team.
Check out the Dominique Foxworth Show anywhere you get your podcast. Jason Fitz and Harry Douglas are Fitz and Harry.
The officiating in the NFL is a problem.
Stop your whining, you little children. No, we don't have a problem. The problem is Twitter. Y'all just
He
sit down.
remembers it all, so that lets you know he has an issue with it.
No, because
this had an issue with it.
This is part of being an NFL fan. Sit down, shut up, color in your books.
Fitz and Harry, weekdays at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. This is Freddie and Fitzsimmons
Let the good times
on
roll.
ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app.
And greetings and salutations, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the best show on your radio. It is Freddie and Fitzsimmons. Thank you very much. Got your boy Freddie Coleman here. Got Trevor Maddich over there. Got Kirk Morrison over there. We're all together here on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80. Tune in and don't forget to tell your smart speaker to play ESPN Radio. Guys, I'm just going to say it like this. I wonder how many people are watching Avatar, The Way of the Water, in their phones midway through the third quarter, or maybe even the second quarter, Trevor. This was an ugly championship game. Georgia 65, TCU 7. They went on a 55-0 run when this game was 10-7.
It was ugly if you're TCU, right? But I thought it was a phenomenal game because when it became clear that Georgia would dominate this game physically, from a scheme standpoint, in every way that they dominated this game, it became a thing of beauty to watch that domination and to see how TCU did everything they could to stem the tsunami, and they couldn't do it. I know against TCU had a great season, but to me it was a marvel to watch how dominant this Georgia team was after they lost 15 guys to last year's draft.
It just means more, right? That's what SEC always tells us.
Wait, hold on a second.
Right?
Are you not shilling for the company already, Kirk? Show's not even 3 minutes old, and that's what we're doing?
I'm just saying, it just means more. But no, it seemed like it mean more, obviously, for Georgia tonight. The way that they played throughout this football game, they wanted it way more, I thought, than TCU wanted this football game. I always had an analogy that a coach gave me one time, is always keep your eyes in front of you. Don't ever look down. Keep looking up. So when you're climbing a mountain, what happens when you start getting up too high and you look down? You forget what the goal is. And I thought TCU, for a minute, they came out and they gave their best shot early on, but very quickly they realized we're not moving it. We're David, but this is a different Goliath. And they knew early on they just couldn't get it done. And to me, look, 7 points, you could say the 7 points that they did get was on a busted coverage by Georgia's defense. Outside of that, this game was pure dominance by Georgia on offense, on defense. I'll even throw special teams in there. They had a great special team game outside of the missed extra point. If coaches always say, hey, we haven't played our best game yet, it'd be hard for Kirby Smart not to say this is one of the best games he's ever coached.
Kirk, I love that analogy. Keep your eyes up on the goal when you're climbing the mountain. Here's the problem for TCU today. There was an avalanche of bulldogs coming down from the top. Imagine that. Thousands of bulldogs raining down on you from the top of the mountain as you're trying to trudge up it step by step.
We didn't fall on
Bulldog
Mountain. Bulldog Mountain fell on us.
I love it.
One of the things about that, when you use analogies, and I thought Kirby Smart, the head coach of Georgia, he said it best after this was over. He said, as long as entitlement doesn't creep in, we've got a shot every year. And he said that after the game was over, because that was his way of saying that everybody talked about, we lost all these guys in the NFL on defense. You got Stetson Bennett coming back. Okay, the team won in spite of him and not because of winning a championship last year. You never, ever got that sense of entitlement when it comes to what they were able to do, knowing that so many people did not believe, yeah, you got it last year, you're not going to be able to do it this year.
Whenever I drive around the country in my car in the off season, visiting campuses, every campus has a different feel.
Mm-hmm.
And when you walk into Georgia's football facility in the off season, the overwhelming feeling I had, the vibe I have every time I've gone in there has been one of urgent focus, not of pressure, but of focus and of urgency. And that means preparation. That's the process. I mean, this is Kirby Smart's version of the process of Nick Saban in Alabama. Kirby Smart, of course, was defensive coordinator at Alabama for Saban before he came over to coach Georgia. And the players have bought into that urgent focus. They haven't lost it, at least not to this point. And that's one of the reasons that they have won 2 consecutive national championships, and a lot of people think that they might win next year as well. It's not just the talent. It's the fact that Coach Smart and his staff is able to get those guys to subordinate their personal desires as big high school divas that are big superstars to the needs of the team as it applies to the focus in the moment, every day, everything that they do, the process, and you can feel it when you walk into their facility in Athens.
And Kirk, you mentioned something before we came on about the curtain call when it came to Stetson Bennett, that it's one thing to see him go from a hero to a zero to a hero, like we've seen him do in the last couple of years. But even the kind of curtain call he got, that is something that we've never seen before at this level in a game of this magnitude in college football.
Freddie, we've never seen that before. We've never seen it. And think about the company that he joined as 2-time national champion starting quarterbacks on a back-to-back college football team to win it. I mean, you go back to, obviously, Tommy Frazier. I can't think of the curtain call that Tommy Frazier had when he won back-to-back national championships. Like, I'm friends with Matt Leinart. I don't remember the curtain call when he won back-to-back when he was the starting quarterback at USC, or even A.J. McCarron when he was at Alabama in 2011, 2012. I'll always remember the Stetson Bennett back-to-back national title because the second one was a blowout, and it had an opportunity for him to come out of a football game in the beginning of the fourth quarter, game already in hand, but it was a moment where the game just stopped, and Kirby Smart was able to call a timeout, bring Stetson Bennett over, give him a big hug, but more importantly, I thought the Georgia fan base, the Georgia defense that was on the sideline, they were all standing up, clapping for him. Everybody knew that one of the best quarterbacks in Georgia history in terms of accolades, in terms of accomplishments, in terms of success was walking off that field. They've got to build a statue at some point, Freddie, for Stetson Bennett. They've got to build a statue for him at some point, man, because when you say that name, Stetson Bennett, in Athens, Georgia, you already know who that is. Trust me, there's going to be a lot of kids named Stetson in about 15 years, 20 years being recruited to the state of Georgia. I'm telling you.
Coming up Tuesday, the Eagles got the #1 seed in the NFC, but are they the top team in my final real rankings? Find out at 6:30 a.m. Eastern on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, ESPN Radio, ESPN2, ESPNU.
Anyone who has ever needed self-storage knows what a hassle it can be. You have to rent or borrow a truck and then find someone to help you move your stuff. And let's face it, moving furniture and heavy items without damaging them isn't easy. Renting the unit is worse. The hidden fees and admin costs are scarier than the dingy facilities you're leaving your stuff in. Why not use ClosetBox instead? ClosetBox is self-storage without leaving home. They'll pick up your belongings, store them securely, and bring any item back when you need it. The best part? Unlike traditional self-storage, you only pay for what you store. No paying for unused storage space. ClosetBox's background check storage movers are licensed, bonded, and insured and will take care of all of the heavy lifting. ClosetBox's local storage centers are temperature controlled and monitored 24/7. ClosetBox has an A+ rating from the BBB. Call 877-233-5696 now for the season's best rates. Get $50 off first month storage using code RADIO50. That's 877-233-5696. 877-233-5696.
Tuesday on Fitz and Harry, Georgia has done it again. The Dogs, back-to-back national champions.
And I'll tell you why nobody else can replicate what Kirby Smart has done.
Tuesday, Fitz and Harry, noon Eastern on ESPN Radio and watch in the ESPN app.
Canty and Carlin.
Jim Harbaugh is rumored to have spoken to David Tepper, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, about their head coaching job.
Yeah, it's a tough decision that David Tepper has to make, but in weighing what direction you want to go in, I don't want it to get lost that Jim Harbaugh is a better coach than Steve Wilkes. Not just what he did with the San Francisco 49ers, but what he did at Stanford and being able to resurrect that program, what he did at Michigan, being able to resurrect that program. The guy knows how to build programs.
But he also comes with a lot of baggage. You can bring in Jim Harbaugh and pay him $20 million a year if you want. I personally would rather ride with the guy that I know my players want to see there and that, frankly, is a fan favorite in my town. When you look at how that team responded after starting 1-4 and firing the head coach, and you look at his standing in that community, hire Steve Wilkes.
Canty and Carlin, weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio. You can also listen and watch on the ESPN app.
Hey, it's Greeny, and congratulations to the Georgia Bulldogs doing something that has so seldom been done before. Back-to-back national champs will be the place for all the reaction and insight. It's Greeny, starting 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
DJ K-Dub checking in, previously on the Firebomb Show.
Hold on 1 second. When did Georgia go to Texas?
The last time Georgia played Texas.
No, that was Alabama who played.
I thought Georgia played the Texas Longhorns.
Okay, listen, it's entirely possible I missed the game.
The Paul Feinbaum Show, weekdays at 3 Eastern on the ESPN app and on the SEC Network.
Are you ready for an epic wild card Monday? Will Prescott and the Cowboys offense come alive in Tampa?
They came to see us. Let's put on a show, baby.
Or will Brady and the Buccaneers have one more playoff run in them? A wild card showdown. Ready for football, Cowboys, Buccaneers, Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and ABC. And you can watch Peyton and Eli's take on the game on ESPN2 and ESPN+.
Coming up Tuesday, we will have a full breakdown of the College Football National Championship and continue to monitor NFL Coaching Carousel. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, Tuesday, 6 a.m. Eastern, ESPN Radio, ESPN2, ESPNU.
You listen to him every morning on the ESPN Radio. Now listen to me take him to task. Keyshawn Johnson joins me on Tuesdays, right here on First Take, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Steve Lennox. For the first time since Alabama in 2011 and 2012, college football has back-to-back national champions. Georgia Bulldogs never trailed Monday night at SoFi Stadium and winning the college football national title game. Georgia beat TCU 65-7. Stetson Bennett responsible for 6 scores. Branson Robinson ran for a couple of scores. Brock Bowers 7 receptions for 152 yards. Javon Bullard with 2 interceptions. Head coach Kirby Smart on comparing this year's title to last year.
It was a little different because we felt like we were going to win. By the third quarter, you felt like you had it. So you had more time to celebrate it. But these kids, these fans, this university means so much to my family and what it's done for me. It's an honor to be here and just awesome.
Kirby Smart on ESPN Radio with Chris Budden. Bulldogs dominated from beginning to end. Georgia ran 51 plays in TCU territory. TCU ran 51 total plays for the entire game. Ravens and Bengals meet Sunday in an AFC wild card round matchup in the playoffs. Baltimore head coach John Harbaugh on Monday non-committal on Lamar Jackson and his return to practice. Jackson did miss the final 5 games of the regular season with a knee injury. Arizona Cardinals on Monday firing head coach Cliff Kingsbury. General manager Steve Keim is not going to return so he can focus on his health. NBA Nikola Jokic delivering a triple-double, his 11th of the season. Jokic 14 points, 16 assists, 11 rebounds. Nuggets at home beat the Lakers 122-109.
Coming up Tuesday, despite having a rookie starting quarterback, I'll tell you why the 49ers are the best team in the NFC playoffs. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, Tuesday, 6 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
This is Freddie and Fitzsimmons.
How about them
on
dogs?
ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app.
And welcome to the best show on your radio. It is Freddie and Fitzsimmons. Thank you very much. With Trevor Maddich and Kirk Morrison, I'm Freddie Coleman, presented by Progressive Insurance on the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80. Tune in and don't forget to tell your smart speaker to play ESPN Radio. It is Georgia's world and everybody else is living in it, except when it comes to this team. I'll tell you who that is in a couple of minutes, and if Trevor Maddich and Kirk Morrison will agree, here's a hint. They probably won't. That's in 5 minutes right here on Freddie and Fitzsimmons, but 65-7. You guys are part of the call. Mark Kessler, the pre and post game. And Kirk, I'm going to start with you. We know it's the world of Georgia, but I don't think anybody thought it would happen this quickly with Kirby Smart leaving Alabama as the defensive coordinator and getting Georgia to the top of the heap where they are right now.
No, I didn't expect this. I mean, remember Kirby Smart's first year at Georgia, he's playing in the Liberty Bowl. Okay, just remember. And no offense to the Liberty Bowl, but
I mean, you're about to offend the Liberty Bowl.
Well, because I think where the program is now. If Georgia play in the Liberty Bowl now, it's considered a season of disappointment. Georgia has elevated themselves into a point where it's national championship or bust. That's it. If they don't win a national championship now, it's considered a failure. The same way we look at Nick Saban in Alabama. They don't make the college football playoff. They don't make it to the national championship. The season is a failure. That's where Kirby Smart has taken now this program of Georgia back to the prominent stages or prominent stage of when you said Georgia football, you knew what you were getting. This is one of the premier programs in all of college football, but not just with the play on the field. We're talking about an NFL factory now where every single year you're getting more and more guys to the next level. And so now it's going to be about how do they replace the quarterback. I thought that this past season, the 2022 season, fellas, that okay, this was probably one of Kirby Smart's best jobs, okay, because he had to replace 15 guys who all got drafted to the NFL. And now guess what? The challenge gets even bigger because not only will he have to replace more guys that go to the NFL, he's got to replace a quarterback now. That's the biggest part. If he's able to go out and repeat and do what he did this year and have another successful season, it goes to show that Kirby Smart is not one of the best. He is the best college football coach right now currently.
Because there's an elephant in the room.
Okay.
The elephant is coached by one Nick Saban, right? Now, they didn't play today, right? This was Georgia's day at TCU's
He was
day.
there, though, but you're right.
But here's part of the thing for Georgia in winning this. They expunged the elephant in the room. I mean, in 2017, they play Alabama in the national championship game. They're ahead in overtime, and and Tua Tagovailoa drops back to pass as a freshman and throws an amazing dart to Devontae Smith down the left sideline and beats Georgia in the national championship game. The next year, Alabama's playing Georgia in the SEC championship game, and Georgia's leading late. Jalen Hurts comes off the bench in the fourth quarter as a backup and leads the game-winning touchdown drive and beats Georgia. This last year, Alabama played Georgia in the SEC championship. They finally beat them, right? But last year, Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC championship. And Georgia, a few weeks later last year, beat Alabama in the national championship game. But people said that Alabama didn't have their top two receivers. They were injured. It was a different Alabama team. Okay. So the elephant in the room is still there this year. And Georgia, in winning back-to-back national championships after replacing all those guys that got drafted, finally expunged the elephant in the room. They had been like the middle child Georgia had. Where Alabama was the older sibling. They were Jan Brady, and Alabama was Marsha Brady.
Marsha.
So now they have officially expunged the elephant in the room, and they have elevated from Jan to Marsha. And that's a huge elevation.
Okay, we're going to get back to the elephant in the room with Trevor Maddich, Kirk Morrison, Freddie Cohen, and Freddie Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio. But Georgia was so good tonight, they probably TCU head coach Sonny Dykes speaking in two languages, English and profanity.
Bennett out of the gun. Edwards, the running back, on his left hip. And it's a fake handoff. Bennett keeps it around the left corner, inside the 5, and he scores. A great fake to Edwards heading to the right. Bennett kept it and ran around the left end and was untouched as he ran along the numbers into the end zone. A 21-yard rushing touchdown for Stetson Bennett.
Sean McDonough with the call on ESPN Radio. I had not seen a dominant performance like this in a championship game since Alabama did it to Notre Dame in 2013 when they beat them 42-14. And I'll never get Mike Goldie Jr. used to work for us, guys. He played in that game. I said, when did you realize that you guys are in trouble? He said, Freddie, the first offensive play we like to call our little counter series. They said they snapped the ball, and he said 2 Alabama guys were behind him before he could get out of his stance. He knew right then and there that game was going to be a problem. That's what this game reminded me tonight, that anything that they did tonight, Trevor and Kirk, and Trevor, I'll start with you, and Kirk, you can weigh in after that. TCU was like they were running in slow motion, and Georgia was just 100 miles ahead of them. I had not seen anything like that in a championship game since Alabama did that to Notre Dame back in 2013.
Part of the reason was that Georgia's coaching staff was brilliant, and they essentially either took away or bypassed what TCU did best. I mean, they watched that Michigan game and saw that TCU's defense did a great job of gumming up the interior rush lanes. They had blitzes from linebackers and safeties from all different angles, and they got behind the line of scrimmage. And whenever Michigan tried to run inside, they kept on meeting TCU defenders in the backfield. So Georgia in this game didn't run between the tackles that much. They ran off tackle, and they ran outside to bypass all. Don't try to decode all that stuff inside. Yeah. Let's just go around it. And that play that you just played, that touchdown run by Stetson Bennett, was exactly one of those plays. It was a zone read. They didn't fake the ball, but put the ball into the belly of the running back who was going to the right. And the read was to pull the ball and run wide left. And Georgia pulled their left tackle, Broderick Jones. He went wide left and blocked the guy that would have closed off that alley. Mm-hmm. And that made a huge lane for Stetson Bennett to score that 21-yard touchdown. And so they bypassed one of TCU's best aspects by going around it.
And you just knew it was going to be different, right? Because they got the ball at their own 43-yard line. They went 5 plays, 57 yards. Mm-hmm. Their best player, Brock Bowers, had 2 catches for 33 yards on that drive. They overcame 2 penalties, a false start and also 1 illegal formation. And yet Bennett, right? Stetson Bennett waltzes into the end zone, cruise into the end zone. And once they scored, you just said, this might get ugly. Okay, TCU comes back. They get a little score, but right after that, we just knew it was going to be different. I think all the attention was on Bowers, and he still had an unbelievable game. All the attention was on the running backs, was on A.D. Mitchell. But we keep forgetting about Stetson Bennett, and I thought that TCU forgot about Stetson Bennett, and he torched them on the ground.
That brings me back to the elephant in the room that is still Alabama. that is still the team, in my opinion. The way their program is, the way they're built, all the things we've seen Georgia been able to do, the healing hands of Saban were able to put on Kirby Smart and say, hey, this is how we do it. And Kirby Smart's taking it to a different level that nobody saw coming when it comes to Georgia. You can give me Ohio State, you can give me Michigan, all these other teams out there, but that is still a team out there that if those two had met in a championship game, it would have been a lot closer than what we saw tonight, Trevor, between TCU and Georgia, where Georgia would not have gone in a 55-0 run versus Alabama like we saw tonight versus TCU.
Alabama didn't get a chance at Georgia this year, did they?
They wanted it, though.
Yeah, they wanted it. They didn't play in the SEC championship game this year. LSU did. Yeah, they got him twice last year in the postseason, beat him in the SEC championship game, lost to him in the national championship game. But the Crimson Tide, were sitting back watching this game. And they were thinking, you know what? If we were in this game, we would have done the same thing to TCU. Bama would be thinking that. And whether that's true or not, they're going to have a chance very soon to prove. Because now Georgia has proven they're not just a flash in the pan. They didn't just get up to the top once and, we'll see if they can sustain it. They have proven they can sustain it, and Alabama's hegemony is at risk.
Okay. All right.
I take it a step further, fellas. I would say this. Ohio State's probably spelling themselves a little bit, saying, hey, we convert better on that last drive. We connect on our 50-yard field goal.
Sure.
We're the ones dancing on Monday night playing against TCU. So I think the confidence that Alabama may have, I think Ohio State has that same confidence because they stood toe-to-toe with the champion. And they were, basically a play away where it just seems like TCU didn't belong on the same field as Georgia tonight.
It's amazing how a 50-yard field goal probably affected the fortunes of not just Ohio State but also Georgia and maybe even TCU. Ohio State, as good as they are, would not have beaten TCU 65-7 like we saw Georgia do that tonight in the national championship game, putting away the Horned Frogs. Kurt, let everybody know where they can hit you up on Twitter, my friend.
They can hit me at Kirk Morrison. I'll be having some tweets tonight and tomorrow. I can't believe it, fellas.
Yeah.
College football ended today, man.
I really did. Although it ended for TCU after the coin toss, but that's another subject for another day. Keep up the great work, Kirk. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, fellas. Thank you.
Trevor Match and Freddie Cohen, part of Freddie and Fitzsimmons. Hit us up anytime you want. You can do that. Join the conversation at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. We'll have a conversation about Stetson Bennett, from zero to hero and a curtain call. This is ESPN Radio.
Let's go, baby. We are ready for NFL playoffs this weekend.
Super Wild Card Weekend. Who will be one and done, and who will begin a magical run?
We're the winner, we go home. What do you want to do?
Coverage begins every morning at 6 Eastern with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. And it continues all day, right here on ESPN Radio.
Anyone who has ever needed self-storage knows what a hassle it can be. You have to rent or borrow a truck and then find someone to help you move your stuff. And let's face it, moving furniture and heavy items without damaging them isn't easy. Renting the unit is worse. The hidden fees and admin costs are scarier than the dingy facilities you're leaving your stuff in. Why not use ClosetBox instead? ClosetBox is self-storage without leaving home. They'll pick up your belongings, store them securely, and bring any item back when you need it. The best part? Unlike traditional self-storage, you only pay for what you store. No paying for unused storage space. ClosetBox's background check storage movers are licensed, bonded, and insured and will take care of all of the heavy lifting. ClosetBox's local storage centers are temperature controlled and monitored 24/7. ClosetBox has an A+ rating from the BBB. Call 877-233-5696 now for the season's best rates. Get $50 off first month storage using code RADIO50. That's 877-233-5696. 877-233-5696.
I'm Pablo Torre, host of the podcast ESPN Daily. Every weekday morning, I will bring you the best sports story you'll hear all day. Today on ESPN Daily, the NFL regular season is over, the playoffs are in full clarity, and Mina Kimes explains all of it. Follow us and listen wherever you get good content.
The
complete 30 for 30 library is exclusively on ESPN Plus.
Maya Moore's stepping away from basketball to fight for justice.
My last name is Lee, Bruce Lee.
Stream over 100 documentaries featuring the biggest names in sports, with titles including The Tuck Rule, Be Water, Lance, You Don't Know Bo, and more. The award-winning 30 for 30 library, streaming exclusively on ESPN Plus. Sign up now at ESPNplus.com or get the Disney bundle, including Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus to stream the best movies, shows, and sports.
Coming up Tuesday, we will have a full breakdown of the College Football National Championship and continue to monitor NFL coaching carousel. Keyshawn J. Will and Max, Tuesday, 6 a.m. Eastern, ESPN Radio, ESPN2, ESPNU.
ESPN Films presents This is the South. This is where Rupp laid the foundation for a big blue nation. Where Trish started her ascent to the summit. Down here, one team's hell is another's hog heaven. And rich history is the dawn of an even brighter future. Larger-than-life characters that transform college basketball forever. This is the SEC, and this is our story. Southern Hoops premieres January 30th, 9 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network.
Send tweets to Dominique Foxworth about this, but if the Vikings do win the Super Bowl, I will do something very embarrassing on camera of the listeners/viewers choosing because they suck.
Check out the Dominique Foxworth Show anywhere you get your podcast.
The Spanish Super Cup is here. Stars from around the globe reunite in Saudi Arabia. With four of Spain's biggest clubs competing to live this year's first major trophy.
Real Madrid victorious in the desert.
The Spanish Super Cup semifinals, January 11th and 12th. Coverage begins at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2, ESPN Deportes, and ESPN Plus.
Did you miss Canty and Carlin?
I could see somebody in the NFL, the right situation, coming to him.
Here's my problem. If you're Kirby Smart, the way that you approach your program will not work in the NFL.
I don't know, man. I can understand why a collegiate coach that's had the success that Kirby Smart has had would consider the NFL. And then the other part about it is, Carlin, if it doesn't work out in the NFL, it's not as if Kirby Smart couldn't go back to college like Nick Saban did.
Canty and Carlin, weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio. You can also listen and watch on the ESPN app.
Nobody saw this coming when it comes from Stetson Bennett of Georgia going from zero to hero with Trevor Madigan for Ian Fitzsimmons. I'm Freddie Coleman. Thanks for joining us on Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80. Tune in and don't forget to tell your smart speaker to play ESPN Radio. If you told anybody who was somebody about 4 years ago that Stetson Bennett's final play in college football would be this.
The play clock is running all the way down, and Kirby Smart's going to use the timeout as it goes to 1 second. The Bulldogs are still in a huddle. And I think it might be a curtain call here for Bennett. Yes, it is. That's why they did that. Kirby Smart walks out near the numbers on the near sideline, gives Bennett a hug. I love that. And that will do it for a legendary career for Stetson Bennett.
It even seems stranger hearing Sean McDonough say that along Todd Black on ESPN Radio. A legendary career and Stetson Bennett in the same sentence. But Trevor Madigan, that's exactly what he was able to do with this unlikely path going from zero to hero like that.
Last year, zero. I mean, he was a walk-on at Georgia. He wasn't going to play. So he left and went to community college and then came on back. And after all that shook out last year, JT Daniels, transfer quarterback from USC, was the starter. Mm-hmm. And he ended up getting hurt. And so Bennett stepped in, and everyone was worried about the season being lost because you got this former walk-on Stetson Bennett. You know, Kirk Herbstreit said he looks like a kicker in his uniform. He's listed at 5'11", 190, but I'm a little 5'11". Surprised if that's the truth. Yeah. And so he walks on out there, and all he does is put together the greatest 2 years run of results in the history of Georgia football. I mean, Matthew Stafford, #1 pick in the draft, right? Matthew Stafford never did this. You can check off great names. Herschel Walker is a running back. didn't lead them to 2 consecutive national championships.
Almost came close, never did it. Yeah.
And so Stetson Bennett, I mean, and not evaluating NFL talent, not evaluating even talent,
right?
Evaluating the results. That curtain call was so deserved by him, and I was so glad they did it that way, because normally you pull him out of the game after a series or after a score, right? And then he's on the sideline, everybody's congratulating him. But what Kirby Smart, the Georgia coach, did was run a play. Now it's second down, call timeout. Now they pull Stetson Bennett off the field. So his teammates on the field are giving him love. Teammates were coming off the sideline to give him love, and the officials didn't care. They didn't call anything. Coaches were coming out. The fans were waving envelopes because his nickname is the mailman.
Yeah.
All that happened. The game stopped. The world stopped, so that everybody watching that, millions of people around the country and the world, could see the love being poured out for Stetson Bennett in that curtain call, which never would have existed if they just would have run the series and then didn't put him out for the next series.
Right.
And I think he is so deserving of that, and I so respect Kirby Smart for allowing that quarterback, for where he came from, where he ended up, what he did for the Georgia football program, to give him that final send-off where the world stopped for him.
Especially when they told him to go away not once, not twice, not thrice. They told him to go away many, many times. He just did not go away. He just did not give up. And check out what he had to say to Ian Fitzsimmons after a 65-7 back-to-back national championships for Stetson Bennett and the Dogs of Georgia.
Outgaining TCU 589 to 188. Led by Stetson Bennett, who passed for 304 and 4 touchdowns, ran for 2 touchdowns on just 3 carries, 39 yards rushing, total 6 touchdowns responsible for. Making history, one of many bits of history made tonight. Kirby Smart and his family posing for pictures. Wife Mary Beth was an athlete at Georgia back in the late 90s when Kirby started as a defensive back. Kirby.
The words of Sean McDonough describing the whole situation involving both of those men, meaning Stetson Bennett and Kirby Smart, what they did to get through and going to come to Georgia and making that work. Back-to-back national championships. Here's something else about Stetson Bennett. Trevor Madigan for Ian Fitzsimmons. I'm Freddie Coleman on Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio. Stetson Bennett is older than these 8 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, including 4 that will be playing in playoff games this season. Jalen Hurts of Philadelphia, Justin Herbert with the Chargers, Tua Tagovailoa with the Dolphins, Daniel Jones with the Giants, Kyler Murray of the Cardinals, Sam Darnold of the Panthers, Mac Jones of the Patriots, and Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears. He is older than 8 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. None of those guys won a national championship than Tua Tagovailoa, and none of those guys won back-to-back championships like Stetson Bennett at Georgia.
That's part of what makes him Stetson Bennett, though, because he's a bit older, and he's got experience now that's not just being a 5-star high school diva. Everything is great. Everything comes his way. He had to go through a lot of adversity, and he had to figure out a different path to success, to greatness, than those 5-star divas do. They show up on the field, they outrun you, they're stronger than you, they're quicker than you, they're all those things better than you physically. Stetson Bennett wasn't that guy. So he had to learn first how to beat you mentally. And then it became, I think, revealed that he also was a playmaker, not just a game manager. And when things broke down and he had to unfurl the cape and just make plays without help from anybody else because things broke down, you saw him do it over and over again. And Freddie, I would ask you this. You played wide receiver in college.
Mm-hmm.
What about Stetson Bennett is, do you think his receiver makes him so good?
Oh, the ball always gets to you on time. He never puts you in a position where you're going to get destroyed by the safety or destroyed by the linebacker. I know he doesn't have the NFL frame, the NFL arm, the NFL height, the NFL invariables. I get it. But so many times this year, that ball always seemed to get the guys on time. That ball always seemed to be put in a position where they could continue to make a play, where they didn't have to go constantly making plays for him. He was able to make plays with those guys. That was something that nobody thought we would see to this level from Stetson Bennett IV, making Georgia a back-to-back national champion.
See, and as an offensive lineman, I appreciate his toughness. I mean, there's so many times where he will step into a throw, and a defender is coming at him at full speed. And if you were to take the defender off the screen so you couldn't see him, you would think there was nobody there because Bennett would step into the throw like there was no pressure at all.
Right.
But then you put that defender back on the screen, and he smashes Stetson just after he releases the ball, and Bennett jumps up, and he flexes like the Incredible Hulk, and he runs the next play. As an offensive lineman, you're thinking he is one of us.
That's going to be something that Georgia probably never thought in a million
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Steve Lennox. Monday night at SoFi Stadium in Englewood, California. The Georgia Bulldogs led the TCU Horned Frogs 17-7 after the first quarter. Georgia up 38-7 at the half. Georgia up 52-7 after 3. Georgia won their second straight national championship, beating TCU 65-7. Georgia quarterback Stetson Bennett threw for over 304 yards. He had 4 touchdown passes and 2 more on the ground. Reese Davis on SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt sharing this Kirby Smart story.
And since you were counting up the touchdowns, I'll tell you what happened just behind the camera that I'm looking into right now about 5 minutes ago. Kirby Smart ran by. There was a pack of dog fans up there still woofing and barking. And Kirby put up 1 finger, and then he put up 2 fingers, and then he put up 3 fingers. And they liked that result. So now I tried to get him on the stage to say, hey, we'll see you in Houston next year. He wouldn't go for that.
Reese Davis with SVP on SportsCenter. Doug Kazarian writing on ESPN.com that Caesars Sportsbook is already listing Georgia as an overall betting favorite at plus 375 to win the college football playoff next season. Buffalo Bills' Damar Hamlin returning to Buffalo on Monday. He will continue to receive treatment at the Buffalo General Medical Center. Hamlin spent almost a week in Cincinnati following his cardiac arrest. NBA Grizzlies won their 7th in a row, a 121-113 victory against the Spurs. Bucks at Madison Square Garden beat the Knicks 111-107. Jalen Brunson career-high 44 in the loss.
Coming up Tuesday, despite having a rookie starting quarterback, I'll tell you why the 49ers are the best team in the NFC playoffs. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, Tuesday, 6 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Snap to Bennett. He drops back deep. Throwing deep. Wide open receiver. Wade McConkey, a touchdown. Nobody in white and purple near him. Plenty of time for Bennett as he takes the snap. Throwing toward the end zone. Caught again. Brock Powers caught it at the goal line and scores a touchdown.
He's Trevor Maddich in for Ian Fitzsimmons. Joining me, Freddie Coleman on Freddie and Fitzsimmons, presented by Progressive Insurance on ESPN Radio, as well as the ESPN app. SiriusXM Channel 80. Tune in, and don't forget to tell your smart speaker to play ESPN Radio. You're going to hear Sonny Dykes, the TCU head coach, using the word that starts with the letter T that may have unraveled TCU before the game got started. You'll hear about that in 5 minutes. So now if you're Georgia, and we mentioned before we came back, Trevor, about winning 65-7, back-to-back national championships, and Kirby Smart is sneaky in terms of being arrogant because he knows what kind of program he's been able to build. I don't think he ever thought in a million years somebody would say, how do you replace a guy like Stetson Bennett at quarterback? But believe me, Kirby Smart seems to be the kind of guy that will say, not that we made Stetson Bennett, we can find somebody that may not be him, but we're going to keep this dog train rolling down the track as long as we wanted to, because he said it after the game, and I quote, as long as we don't have a sense of entitlement creeping in, we give ourselves a shot each and every year. And he was not just talking about competing or winning the SEC. He talked winning the whole shebang when it comes to national championship.
And you know what? He might. I mean, who else? Because the teams that would be competing with him the most, teams like Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, I mean, some teams that should have really good years next year, they all have a lot of question marks to answer. When you look at the Heisman Trophy finalists, right? They're all heading to the NFL, including Stetson Bennett. And so you've got other teams in competition that need to reload just like Georgia needs to reload. And so Stetson Bennett is one of the biggest ones that they've got to replace because of his production, but also because of his experience. So we'll see what they do, but they've got some really good young players. I mean, Carson Beck was a sophomore this year. He only had 32 pass attempts. He didn't really throw the ball very much, but he completed 75% of them, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And he is a recruit that had a whole lot of offers. I mean, he had offers from Alabama, Florida, Florida State, Penn State, Miami, ended up signing with Georgia. This is a talented guy. And he'll have competition for that starting job next year, which will make him better if he wins it. If he doesn't win it, then whoever beats him out is going to have to be really good because Beck comes with quite a pedigree. But if they can get the quarterback situation sorted out, then they've got a good young core of players coming back to reload again.
Yeah, that's the one thing about this Georgia team. They don't have to worry about losing 8 guys on defense to the NFL like they did last year. They're going to lose some dudes. That's just what happens in college football when guys decide to leave early. Their draft stock is not going to be any better than it's going to be, or guys that are ready to be drafted, they're going to move on to that next level, to that next adventure. But Kirby Smart has shown that we will replace guys. We will reload at Georgia. It's not about, okay, we hope. Kirby Smart, and we saw it tonight, because Reese Davis, this point about Terry Sledjeski, our producer, that he was doing like 1, 2, 3, meaning 3 national championships. And Reese Davis took it to mean that covering the game for College Game Day, saying, hey, that means we can do this again. We won it back-to-back. We can make it a 3-peat. Kirby Smart has that kind of arrogance because he's built that part of his culture, saying, hey, it's not about anybody else. It's about us at Georgia. You're going to have to come to us. We're not going to come back down off this mountaintop anytime soon.
And the thing is, if everybody else is trying to get there, especially if you have been there, how much trepidation do you have right now? I mean, you're confident. You'll never say, oh, no, we can't beat Georgia. But for the last 2 years, who's beaten Georgia? Nobody. Clemson was at the top of the mountain. Clemson's fallen off a little bit.
Yes, they have.
Alabama was at the top of the mountain recently. But last year, Georgia beat Alabama in the national championship game. This year, Alabama didn't even play for the SEC championship. LSU did, out of the Western Division. And so if you're Alabama, if you're an Alabama fan, you're looking at that thinking, okay, well, gee, normally we just reload, and if we have an off year, nobody can best our coach Nick Saban. Nobody can best our talent. But Georgia just did it twice. Even though they didn't play this year, Georgia still rose to the level that Alabama could not this year. And so when you talk about a third consecutive national championship, you talk about doing things that I don't think have ever been done, not in the modern era.
Yeah. In modern football, more than ever before, with the transfer portal, recruiting, what's going on in the locker room, when you have a coach like Kirby Smart, a guy like Nick Saban, a guy like Ryan Day at Ohio State, Jim Harbaugh, if he does not go to the NFL for Michigan, what Lincoln Riley is trying to do at USC, you know you're going to lose players. But you also built up a culture where players are ready. You know, if that guy leaves, I'm taking this spot. Even if that guy comes back, man, you're going to be on the bench, because they have been able to breed competition with those kind of programs. And when you sign with the Georgia, you sign with an Alabama, you know right away, I may be number one this week. There are no guarantees I'm keeping my spot, because there are dudes that are gunning for that spot time and time again. That is something that Kirby Smart, more than anything else, he's a great recruiter, ace recruiter, Trevor. But that's the one thing he's really brought to Georgia that people did not think could actually happen. Breeding that kind of competition with 4- and 5-star guys, and guys that just going up and leaving, going somewhere else when things don't work out because of that competition factor in that program.
That's such a key part of their success, because they're getting the 5 stars. They're getting the highly touted recruits. These are guys that, for their entire athletic lives, from the time they were just tiny, were better than everybody else for the most part.
Sure.
And they always got everything they wanted. The river came right to them. Now all of a sudden they show up at Georgia, and there's other guys just as good as they are running around. So the hard part is to get those players to subordinate their egos to the process, to understand that maybe you might have to wait your turn. If you can't beat that guy out as a freshman, you better wait. If you can't beat him out as a sophomore, you got to wait. And the hard part is to manage the egos, to wrangle the divas into the culture. Because we talk a lot about the culture of Georgia, the culture of Alabama, and both of them have the same problem. That in order to sustain the culture, they need to wrangle the egos of diva recruits. And they both do it at the highest level. Right now, Georgia, for the last 2 years, has done it higher than anybody else. But their ability to win a third, now in a row, will in some measure be dependent upon their ability to take guys that have the physical talent, but you got to worry about their head a little bit, and get that head straight. And their culture right now is a freight train rolling downhill on greased rails.
Great stuff by Trevor Maddich in for Ian Fitzsimmons. Join me, Freddie Coleman and Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance. For a job you'll love, visit progressive.com/careers. Meanwhile, on the other side, boy, that story did not have a happy ending for TCU. everybody said each and every week, this is going to be the week, this is going to be the week, this is going to be the week, that they're not going to win, and they kept winning and winning and winning. They did not win the Big 12 championship game. Many of you thought they were going to get slaughtered by Michigan. That didn't happen. But they faced that slaughter tonight, losing to Georgia in the championship game 65-7. But Sonny Dykes, the head coach of TCU, said there was something going on before the game in his locker room that may have led to the unraveling of TCU versus Georgia.
I think in some ways our guys, we got in the locker room a little bit before the game. You could sense some tension in the room, and we've got to try to not have that. We haven't had that in the past. We've been pretty loose, and the guys were really excited to play, really fired up to play. I thought we were probably just a little too fired up, maybe a little too emotional, and as a result, did some things that we don't normally do. I just don't think we were in the state of mind that we needed to be in, and we've got to do a better job trying to get our players there, and obviously failed in that regard. And again, we'll learn from this mistake and hopefully address it and make sure it doesn't happen again.
When I heard that was the coach's way of saying we were not ready, we were overwhelmed by the moment. Not just by the opponent, but the magnitude of this game, thinking, wow, this is what this is. They never recover from not getting out of their own way when it comes to TCU at the beginning of this game and even before this game, based on what their coach, Sonny Dykes, had a chance to say.
The problem that TCU's players had to overcome is one that Georgia's did not. Georgia, they were here last year at the national championship game, and they understood full well, especially at the quarterback position, that you just need to do your job. Do it at the highest level, but do your job. When you're there for the first time, like TCU was in this game, too often you think you got to make a play. You got to go make something happen. And there were times when, uncharacteristically for TCU, guys weren't in the right place, especially on defense. They were trying to do too much. They were trying to do their job plus. And Georgia exploited it because now they're out of a gap. Now they're out of their coverage responsibility just a little bit. And it's not because they don't care. It's because they care so much they were trying to do too much. And if TCU gets back here with any of these players, that's one of the first things that they will talk about. What we learned is that all we need to do is our job at the highest level. It's still just a football game. Georgia played that way. TCU did not.
And TCU looked at it, and not saying they didn't look at it more of a championship game than Georgia did, but for the first time all year, TCU knew, this is it. They didn't have to worry about it because so many people doubted them. Plenty of people doubted them coming into this game. The difference was, Trevor, they didn't have the championship specter hanging over them. They knew if they lost to Michigan, okay, but we had a great season anyway. We can win a national championship tonight. We hadn't done this as a program since 1938. Our grandparents weren't alive then. The magnitude of the moment overwhelmed them, and Georgia did not let up, winning at 65-7, including a point when this game was 10-7. And they went on a 55-0 run. If Georgia's going to do this again, and maybe again, it's going to look a whole lot different in a couple of years. We'll get to that next with Trevor Maddich and Freddie Coleman. This is Freddie and Fitzsimmons, and this is ESPN Radio.
Waking up with Key, J, and Max.
Keith, sometimes you're talking to a wall. I don't understand why
guys,
you keep going.
Believe me, my reading comprehension is extremely high.
Again, like I said, I thought
it's extremely high.
I've been gone so long, I forgot who Max was.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. It all starts weekday mornings at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN2.
For adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy, now there's Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months, and Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Nothing in me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new place. Nothing is everything.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, you could achieve 90% clearer skin. Ask your doctor about the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
The football playoffs are here, and nothing beats seeing your favorite team live. Not only does Vivid Seats have great NFL ticket prices, they're also the official ticketing partner of ESPN. And with Vivid Seats rewards, when you buy 10 tickets, you get the 11th free. Download the app or visit vividseats.com today. Vivid Seats. Life happens live. Receive a reward credit equal to the average price of the 10 tickets purchased, excluding taxes, fees, and processing costs. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions.
NFL Wild Card Weekend is here. That's right, it has arrived. And the easiest way to get into the playoffs is with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers, join today to get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up with promo code PLAY. So don't miss out. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
21 plus in select states. First online real money wager only. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable free bets that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Virginia, and West Virginia. 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona. 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming and Kansas or visit KSGamblingHelp.com in Kansas. 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Tennessee Redline 1-800-889-9789 in Tennessee.
Will they find a home? Sponsored by Geico. Sarah wants a yard. My own little paradise. Brad, however, hates yard work.
The only thing I hate more than cutting the grass is paying someone to cut the grass.
Compromise is tough, but these two won't have to compromise when they bundle home and car insurance with Geico. It's easy, and they could save even more. In the end, Sarah and Brad found a great home with a yard. A very, very small yard.
Time to get it done. And I'm done.
Bundling without compromise at geico.com.
In 15 minutes with Trevor Manager, Freddie Coleman, and Freddie and Fitzsimmons, you're going to hear what Kirby Smart had to say about this is only the beginning when it comes to Georgia football and dominating in college football. That's in 15 minutes on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80. Tune in, and don't forget to tell your smart speaker to play ESPN Radio. Whether Georgia wins it or not next year, it's going to be the last year when we have only 4 teams, Trevor, making the college football playoff. It's going to expand to 12 teams. In Freddie's perfect world, if I had my way, it would stay at 4. But I live on planet Earth. I know these things are not going to happen to my liking.
I would dispute that, but I see what you're saying.
Why would you dispute it?
That you live on planet Earth? You live on planet Freddie.
I do live on planet Freddie. I can't dispute that. My planet is a pretty good planet. You know, there's sunshine and lollipops and rainbows.
And some mist in L.A.
Oh, yeah, whether it's inside or outside. There's no doubt about that. But it's going to be very interesting 2 seasons from now, whether Georgia's trying to defend another championship or somebody gets to the top and they win it next year. A 12-team playoff is going to be very interesting because instead of having to win 2 games with a national championship, you're going to have to win 3. And if you don't get a bye, you're going to have to win 4. I wonder what kind of quality we're going to see with an expanded playoff that's going to happen in 2024.
Is that why you don't like it? You think that there won't be quality?
I'm more concerned that the deeper and deeper you go, not simply going to have a lot of 65-7 games like we saw tonight in the national championship game. This is an outlier compared to championship games we've seen in recent memory. Yeah, have we seen a blowout in the semifinal? Yeah, but not a team going in a 55-0 run that we saw from Georgia from the first quarter on. But when you have guys that you got to ratchet yourself, not just physically, but mentally. Play again, play again, play again. You're having an NFL-type situation in college football. Will they adjust, of course? First couple of years, you're going to see some runaways with early games.
Sure, but I mean, if that's just too much for you and if that's too hard, you can just opt out as a team. Yeah, you know, we already played a regular season, and we don't want to have to play any extra games. Wah, it might be a little bit
snarky.
Wah. Yeah, a little snarky. The thing is, I don't think anybody will opt out. I think they'll all want to be in that playoff. Of course. I think the 12-team playoff, Freddie, is fantastic for college football. I mean, fantastic. And you're right, there will be some blowouts. That will be, I think, mitigated a little bit by the current format that we seem to be moving towards, which is the 4 highest-ranked conference champions will get a bye. So that means you won't have number 1 playing number 12, right? You won't have Georgia playing, Boise State in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
If Boise State is good enough to win the first round, they might face them in the second round,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think that'll help that a little bit. But overall, the 12-team playoff keeps every region in the country and every conference involved in this thing.
I don't doubt that.
The 14 playoff excludes so many because if the best team in your conference has a new quarterback or a new coach or some injuries early and they lose a couple of games, but then by the end of the season they're playing like one of the best teams in the country, well, it doesn't really matter. And the national conversation always tends to zero in on the teams that are most likely to make the 14 playoff, right? But if you're in the Pac-12, if you're usually in the Big 12, often in the Big 12, and you have a very balanced league and you get some teams lose some games, you're not in the conversation anymore. Now, especially because we're talking about the highest 6 ranked conference champions are in, your conference championship could be between teams with 2 and 3 losses. And it still matters on a national level.
Okay.
And that's important because fans stay engaged at a national level. And I think that's good for college football.
I hear what you're saying on that. But if that's going to be the case, I think I would be more in line with your argument if we didn't have like conference championship Saturday. I think if you take away that week, but I'm not taking money out of people's pockets. I know better. I would never go to somebody in the SEC that has that game every year in Atlanta, or the Big 12 having that game every year in Dallas, or whatever, because those games are going to matter, especially in a post-pandemic, quote-unquote, world now. That money, bottom line, really helps athletic departments. We have these conference championship games where the whole league is going to benefit, not just those 2 teams. And we know why they're going to 12-team playoff, because there's so much money that's going to be out there, they're not going to turn away from it. And the prime reason, look at this past Sunday and Saturday in the National Football League, where people, to back up your point, we're still vesting the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers, because the Packers win, they're in, the Packers don't win, they're out. There were so many different people vested in that, and that's what college football is banking on, having a 12-team playoff. Like I said, in my perfect world, the 4 best teams have the bowl system, yada, yada, yada. But I also know when there's so much money and prestige is out there, you'd be a fool to turn a blind eye to that and not have a 12-team playoff.
Freddie, I think you don't have a problem with teams making money. Your shirt is worth more than my car.
That's not true.
I'm looking at your shirt going, I would trade that in on a really nice SUV.
See, don't put that out there. That's how rumors get started.
But, who's to say that Alabama might not have been the best team this year? I mean, Alabama was number 5 in the playoff, right? They lost 2 games, both of them on the road, to teams ranked in the top 10 at the time they played them, on a walk-off play.
Yep.
A walk-off play at the end. Yep. And that's why they didn't make the playoff. Who's to say that by the end, they weren't one of the 1 or 2 best teams in the country?
That's fair.
You just don't know that. And so I think it's good to be able to make sure that the inclusion is there. And I love it that conference championships are now restored to their rightful place as one of the most important things in college football. Because in this 14 playoff, you had 2 teams that didn't win the conference championship, TCU and Ohio State. Mm-hmm. And I think having a conference championship as a tiebreaker at the end of the process, if you can't differentiate teams by other means, to then apply the conference championship, that diminishes the conference championship. Now you're talking about the top 6 highest ranked conference champions are in. And that to me is massive because conference championships now matter tremendously and they're not just a tiebreaker.
Trevor, manager for Ian Fitzsimmons, joining me, Freddie Coleman on Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio. I can't wait to see what this is going to look like because this way you don't have to worry about people speculating. If we had a 12-team playoff, well, we don't. We had a 4-team playoff. Just where were the 4 teams getting in? But that's going to be very interesting 2 playoffs from now, how that's going to shake down, who's that team outside of Power 5 conferences or those teams. I don't think it's just going to be one non-Power 5 team making the playoff. It's going to be a couple. And let 2 of those teams pull an upset. And you know the big boy's going to raise holy you-know-what. Because I see how that happens in college basketball. They want more teams in, not for the little guy, but to get more of the big boys in. That's what this has been designed, to get more of the big boys in. All you need is that one little UCF, one little Tulane, somebody like that, knocking off a team and getting to a semifinal and having everybody being completely not thrilled about that. in power conferences.
Yeah,
I'm an agent of chaos.
People that are worried, though, that you're expanding too much and you've got teams that, maybe shouldn't be in a playoff. It's 12 teams. Listen, the same teams that normally are playing in the Final Four are still going to be playing in the Final Four. You might have somebody rise up, but in basketball, you could have a couple of great shooters and a whole bunch of experienced fifth-year seniors because they weren't good enough to go to the NBA, and you can do stuff in March Madness. In football, I think it's a little bit different. I think you'll still see the same blue bloods.
Well, we'll find out, because in 2024, that's when 4 goes to 12, and that's when it's going to get real interesting. That word interesting applies to Georgia and maybe the beginning of something special. That's next on Freddie and Fitzsimmons.
Tuesday on Fitz and Harry, Georgia has done it again. The Dogs, back-to-back national champions.
And I'll tell you why nobody else can replicate what Kirby Smart has done.
Tuesday, Fitz and Harry, noon Eastern on ESPN Radio, and watch in the ESPN app.
When Shopify says you can sell anywhere, they mean it. Woo, hold up. Just got a new sale. Order fulfilled and shipped. Inventory levels good. Whoa, Shopify doesn't mind if you're at sea level or on top of the world. You can run and grow your business anywhere. Climbing mountains is never easy, but at least Shopify gives me all the tools I need for my business to hit new peaks.
Whether you're selling carabiners or crop tops, start selling with Shopify today and join the platform simplifying commerce for millions of businesses worldwide. We've built the platform so you can keep climbing and grow your business to new heights.
With Shopify, you really can sell to anyone, from anywhere.
This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Start selling online today. Sign up for a free trial at shopify.com/play. 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 Internet connection required. Not available on mountaintops or seafloors.
As part of its goal to make homes and hometowns better for all, Lowe's has committed $100 million to make a positive impact in local communities through its Lowe's Hometowns program. Each year through 2026, people across the country can nominate their hometown projects in need. Lowe's Hometowns will help restore and revitalize community spaces from gardens, parks, and food pantries to neighborhood housing, community centers, and much more. Visit Lowe's.com/hometowns for details on how you can nominate a project in your community starting January 23rd.
Hello there. My name is Seychelle, and what makes the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich original to me is the punch of flavors that's unlike any other. You get the crispy tenderness of the chicken and that hint of sourness from the pickles. Ta-da!
Hey, I'm Juan, and what makes the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich original to me is you're going to get chicken that's crispy, golden, and juicy. This is the gold standard of chicken sandwiches.
Order the original Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich on the Chick-fil-A app today. Real customers paid for their testimonials.
Goodyear believes in the power of moving forward. No matter if it's on the track, the court, or the field, movement makes us want to be more. It pushes us to go further, to show the world what we can do. Movement has the unique ability to change our perspective, to challenge us, to work for a better tomorrow. Movement can even bring us together when we're still, because if we're focused on the next move, we don't have to worry about what's behind us. Goodyear, more driven.
Tuesday on Fitz and Harry, Georgia has done it again. The Dogs, back-to-back national champions.
And I'll tell you why nobody else can replicate what Kirby Smart has done.
Tuesday, Fitz and Harry, noon Eastern on ESPN Radio, and watch in the ESPN app.
Coming up Tuesday, we will have a full breakdown of the College Football National Championship and continue to monitor NFL coaching carousel. Keyshawn J. Will Max, Tuesday, 6 a.m. Eastern, ESPN Radio, ESPN2.